Hello everyone, how are we all? Hopefully we're all well. We're all good. Here's the first test of the hopefully emote wall, which almost certainly won't work. I tried to get the emote wall working again. When you put emotes in the chat and it comes up on the screen and floats about. It's very whimsical. I tried to do it and it ultimately seems to have failed, but thank you for at least trying. Thuria, yeah. There you go. I hate the world. I hate everything. I try to do one thing and it fails. Well, hopefully this show won't fail. Hopefully. I'm going to be on with Curtis, doing not Tiny Island, you cunt. Doing Normal Island, which is about a tiny island. But it's about Normal Island. which is why I'm not on screen here, because I'm about to be on screen on the other thing. Hopefully. Let's go to settings, audio. No, I don't want the stream camera, you cunt. I want that one. There you go. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one, friend. Fuck yes. No, I don't want to mirror my camera or touch up my appearance, you cheeky cunts. Display name. Kevin Massive Cock Logan. Enter the studio. Yeah.
Here's the man.
Hello. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Hang on a second. Oh, fuck. There you go. That's better.
What you been up to? Spoke for a while, boy.
Yeah, no. Well, no, not since the last show, basically.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, just carrying on. Same old, mate. What you been up to? Interviewing statesmen, no doubt.
No, not yet. What have I been doing? Don't think I've done anything really. No. Did you watch the VeeP debate? Or are you covering that tonight?
No, I'm doing that after this. Yeah.
I started watching a little bit of it.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
I mean, there's one bit where Vance gets fact checked, and he was like, "Oh, I thought we weren't doing fact checks," and that's like, that's a major loss because you just said, you basically said, "I don't want to be fact checked."
Yeah, he's basically saying, "I am now lying."
Yeah, I am now lying to. How dare you check? And then I don't know. Walt seemed quite nervous. Again, I've only watched the first 5-10 minutes. So I don't know if he destroys him or not. But hello.
Oh, did I kick Kevin off then?
You did.
There we go.
Yeah, perfectly fine. Sensible decision, editorially speaking.
Yeah.
How's it going, Kevin?
Very well. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Struggling to keep up with all the news.
True.
Fucking wild shit happening in the Middle East, though, isn't it?
Which is unusual because it's usually so calm. Real break with the past. This one.
I know. I can't believe it.
The last thing I thought Israel would do would go and kill a load of innocent people. Good God. Mad talk.
I'm sure it'll
I
all
know,
blow
it's
over
like they
soon.
suddenly know the consequences of bombs now. Now it's on them.
Oh yeah, oh God, the cry bully.
Proper cry bully and shit, isn't it?
Honestly, with the jacket and the earpiece, you do look a little bit like a kind of security guard at a pop concert or something.
Yeah.
Hey, well, we've got a runner.
True.
Do you always wear a chain?
I thought I'd try something different now and wear a jacket, but
No, you look good.
Fucking not good enough for Kev, is it? Nothing's good enough for you, is it?
Look, you know I like you wearing only one thing: perfume. Boom.
Oh, boom! Cheap aftershave as well.
Let's go.
Are you live at the moment?
Am I like? I am. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh.
Lewis, be careful.
Because I didn't say anything.
What, like you usually do?
I know. What was I going to say? Just double checking. Curtis, did you manage by any chance to add in a smaller countdown?
No. So we're gonna have to go now.
Like
I said though, once we move over to the new software, we can skip video, so we can skip it 2 minutes, whatever. So
That's your
I still need to
excuse.
make a tutorial on that. That's my excuse. But I made a nice little Tory conference special one though. It was kind of cool.
All right.
Yeah. What
Keep
order?
waiting, it's fun anyway.
What order are we doing things in?
Yeah. So Kemi Badenoch and her saying that maybe we should imprison some civil servants. That's one. 2 is Tom Tugendhat saying we need a Thatcherite revolution, as if we're not fucking living under it now. 3, Robert Jenrick saying we should have the Star of David on all entry points in the UK.
Sensible, practical.
Sensible.
Yeah,
And then the last story is obviously the shit going down in the Middle East.
Fair enough.
Did you see Kimmy Badenoch's other comments today as well about people on benefits?
Oh, for fuck's sake. No, what
She
did she say?
Oh, go on. Oh yeah, Kemi Badenoch attacks the welfare state. The wealth of the country comes from people who work in it, not live off of it.
Okay. Like
Says
capitalists then, but...
Well, I was about to say, it says the person who's getting an MP salary.
Stop
like,
it.
Where do you think that's
Off
coming
the
from
taxpayer.
exactly? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it costs the country... I'm more pissed off that an MP makes 90 grand a year, whilst also not doing very much, than someone getting, what, £200 a week, if that?
Yeah. There you go.
Hey, we've got a new government though. Rachel Reeves has dyed her hair ginger today. She's a new.
That pissed me off. No, we probably won't get to it, will we? But I just have to say, that's not fucking news. Stop putting it in newspapers. It's not news. Woman gets haircut. I don't fucking care. The interesting story was she just walked out of a fucking meeting with trade union leaders in central London. That's a story. Tell me about that. I don't give a fuck about hair. You cunts. Sorry.
I was a bit annoyed that it was on Politics UK under like literal. I think they literally titled it "Breaking News," which is really annoying.
News.
No, they didn't do breaking news. I retract that. They just put new.
Oh, okay.
Rachel Reeves has dyed her hair ginger. It's like, come on, Politics UK, you're better than that.
I don't. But that's the thing. They're not. They're not better than that. Anything to rather than talk about real fucking news. They're pathetic. The British media are the fucking shittest.
Well, if you, I mean, we're going to be talking about the hypocrisy in the media when it comes to Israeli life and brown people life. So if you want to somehow shoehorn in Rachel Reeves, be my guest.
Well, I mean, we're definitely going to have to talk about the current government's response to the situation. So I might be able to get her in. And split ends. Yeah, I said it. No, I'm only joking. I don't give a fuck. If she came out bald, I wouldn't fucking care. Actually, that would be fucking metal as hell. If the fucking Chancellor shaved completely... Fuck yes. Let's go. Like, I'm not saying I'd vote for her or anything, but, you know. It wouldn't make me want to vote for her less.
She'd probably still claim the buddy bald haircut on expenses anyway.
Well, no, she'd just say, now I'm bald, I really, really have to superheat my house, because I'm cold.
Right, should we get going?
Yeah, quick question. Are you still doing the... I haven't produced in ages, not going to lie. Are you still doing the transition between certain things?
No, I think it's awkward.
Oh. Yeah, it's awkward, isn't it? Good.
Like on the new software, it's automatic. So when you change a scene, it automatically does it. So that's fine.
So
but I feel like
you're
trying to do it here, it's a bit awkward. So just go go from this to this, and then back to me.
No problem.
So
okay.
You're anti-transitioning, is what you're saying.
Try to fucking catch me out, are you?
Cancelled. Fucking cancelled, mate. Over.
Right.
Let's go.
I'm going to the 10-minute countdown. Okay.
The blue one. Yeah.
Oh wait, this is the Tory countdown. Sorry. Glad I
we're all
double checked
Tories.
that.
True.
Yeah.
True, comrade.
So it's Tory 10-minute countdown. Correct.
Yep. See you in 10.
Okay.
I am now mutified on their end. So what I'll do is I'll just turn that down for a second, because y'all don't need to fucking hear that. Anyway, how are we all, chat? Burp for free there. Yes. Don't forget, you can hit the follow button. You can subscribe. You can subscribe with Amazon Prime. You can give subs to the community. You can do super chats. You can go over to Patreon and or PayPal. Help me out there. You can go over to the Discord. We've got YouTube, Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, Facebook. These are things. If you're on YouTube, hello YouTuberinos. How are we all? Much love to the YouTuberinos. You can become a member for as little as 99 pence. You can gift memberships to the community. You can also do super chats. That is well, we're not doing those jokes, but thank you 255. Yes, you can do super chats over there as well, and I will read them out at the end of this bit though, because I've turned off the alert box because I don't need that fucking distraction. Don't need that distraction at all. The sub increase is a bit much. What is the sub increase? What has it gone up to? I didn't even know it was going up. Like, Twitch send me emails about this sort of thing, and I'm just like, I don't fucking know. And also, like, they're telling me about a thing, but there's nothing I can fucking do about it, so... I'm not reading your fucking novel you've written, you pricks. So I don't know what it's gone up to. 6.49 from 4.49 on mobile, really? That is quite steep. Like, I get that there's, like, inflation and stuff, but... that's none, is it? Like, if you didn't want to be a member or anything, and you just wanted to give $4.49 on mobile, you can do that. You just won't have the membership thing. But yeah, there's literally nothing I can do. It's just Twitch being shit, basically. And they are fucking shit. I love having the opportunity to call my employer a bunch of cunts. That's really nice. I'm going to YouTube and will gift sub the difference. I don't... Okay, Bilderberg. I don't know really what that means, but I thank you for... I mean, paying any amount of attention to whatever I do. Saw you found the food channel. What? What are you talking about? What food channel? Did I find a food channel? I don't know what you're fucking talking about. Our mobile prices are higher for things because Google ads make an Apple demand of fee of 30%. Well, don't do it on mobile then. Yeah, would be. I mean, if you can do it on desktop, do that. Oh, the food channel in the Discord. Right, I thought you meant like a YouTube channel. I was like, I don't fucking watch food shit on YouTube. Yeah. Yeah, so do it on desktop then. Don't do it on mobile, I suppose would be the advice. Thank you, Seamstress, though, for resubscribing. 7 months. Much fucking love to ya. They are upping the price to push us to turbo. I don't know what that means. Like, the thing is, you assume, I think, quite rightly, that as a person who works in this industry and at this company, I would have any information or knowledge about what's going on here or what the words you use mean. And unfortunately, you would be incorrect, though. I haven't got a fucking clue. Rusty's leg is better. That's fucking awesome. Can we get some cheering in chat for Rusty's leg being better? We do like good pupper-based news. Always in the market for some good pupperino-based newsology. Or indeed Hitler cat that doesn't look at all like Hitler, so I don't know why you called it that cat. It's always good as well. They're conflabbing the boing boings. It is, I do feel, I think, a little bit like Robbie Coltrane in Blackadder, where Blackadder is just saying absurd shite. Mine is peptic, phrasmatic, even compunctuous to, of course, use of pericombobulations. That is good news about Rusty. I think its real name might be Puppy. Which is ironic given that when Hitler died he was addicted to opioids. So there's a connection there as well. True, we are live in 4 minutes and a bit. God, the Tories are such fucking wankers. I mean, we'll get into it obviously, but they are fucking dickheads, man. For reals is. It's like 17 quid for ad-free across Twitch. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, but okay. Thoughts on the state of Israel, Kev? Massive fan. Massive, massive fan. Yeah, no, I'm not joking. No, yeah, we'll get into it, but yeah, it's pretty fucking scary. We're in somewhat unprecedented waters, and I don't like it. Do not like it at all. And I have relatively scanty notes for this one, because like, they're both good topics. They're both sort of meaty topics, the Tories and the situation in the Middle East. But like, what is it that I can say that's interesting? That's the issue here. What can I say that isn't just like fuck Israel and fuck the Tories? What can I add? And that's where I'm sort of struggling a little. I've got some bits and pieces though, you know. I've just resubscribed with Prime, 30-month streak. Oh, nicely done, Scribby. Oh, you did? That was 10 minutes ago. Thank you, yeah. Apologies, I missed that. I was talking with humans. Mind you, also, someone remind me to tell you about my afternoon spent with a little person. By which I mean a child. My niece. It was absolutely delightful. What is it, Clem H. Fandango? According to Stephen Cole, Fry's job. Well, I'm not reading that out, but thank you for the weird story about another man's penis. You know I'm always in the marketplace for a good penis-based story. Did Israel at least use a promo code at Raytheon, or is that just... Yeah, I feel like... Well, no, I don't mute or unmute non-binary. I'm not in control of that. So they just unmute me when they're ready. Yeah, probably best not to do the Raytheon joke tonight. Like, it's a funny bit, and I will continue it later on when things aren't exploding as much. But probably a bit bad taste now, I think. Probably best avoided. What bit? Oh, the bit where I pretend to be sponsored by Raytheon. And I've got like a promo code, a fake promo code, and a QR code that you can scan to get 10% off your drone strikes. Like, it's funny at other times. Tonight, when we're talking about actual, like, you know, bombs going off in cities and shit, like, best avoided, I think. Saves any confusion, you know. Anyway, I'll turn this back up now and we'll get going.
Welcome to Normal Islands Live with me, Curtis Daly. Thank you all for tuning in. And tonight I'm joined by a friend of the show, the wonderful, amazing Kevin Logan. Kevin, how are you this evening?
I'm very well, sir, and all the better for being in your presence.
He's such kind words. Every single time he exchanges such beautiful words, and it just makes my heart feel warm inside. Now, tonight, we will be covering the Conservative Party conference. Kemi Badenoch saying that 10% of the civil service should be jailed. Tom Tugendhat calls Labour socialist and calls for a Thatcher-style revolution. Robert Jenrick said the Star of David should be displayed at every point of entry to the UK. And despite being tonight the Conservative Party conference special, this story was too big to ignore. Escalation has ramped up in the Middle East after Iran sent rockets toward Israel. Remember, please make sure you leave a comment. We will be reading some of them out. And if you want yours read, then make sure you let us know your thoughts. Right, on to the first story. Kemi Badenoch says that 10% of the civil service should be jailed. Up to 10% of civil servants should be in prison for leaking official secrets and undermining ministers, Kemi Badenoch has said. The leadership candidate said not all civil servants were an issue, and many were like everyone else, with about 10% being absolutely magnificent. But she said there's about 5 to 10% of them who are very, very bad, should be in prison bad, leaking official secrets, undermining their ministers, agitating. I had some of it in my department. She said there was a problem with ministers using their powers too often. She said the trick to being a good minister is to find the good ones quickly, bring them close and try and get the bad ones out of your department as quickly as possible. A source close to Badenoch said she was joking when she made the comments, but it is the latest eyebrow-raising intervention she's made during the Conservative Party conference. Now, it's not clear what specific secrets she's referring to. Now, if it's state secrets, I mean, yes, that could undermine security, then obviously that's a big deal. However, she could also be referring to leaking information about corruption. Surely it's the duty of those in government and civil servants to make sure journalists have information on ministers if they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. Now, the next thing she says is very telling. I had some of it in my department, usually union-led, but most of them actually want to do a good job, and the good ones are very frustrated by the bad ones. Now, to me, that just sounds like she wants basically complete loyal civil servants, and those who are disloyal should be in prison. Now, she didn't directly say that, but when you piece it all together, there's an insinuation there. Kevin, I mean, you're more than welcome to correct me if you think I'm being over the top, but I can see parallels between this and Trump, the GOP Project 2025, where part of the plan is to rid bureaucrats, which is euphemism for dissenters, and they want to fill the government, legal departments, pretty much the entire state apparatus with loyalists. Do you agree with that? Maybe not on such a big scale, but it's the same idea, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the same idea. I think it's a very Project 2025 concept. It's essentially fascism. It's fascism trying to cloak itself as regard for the law, which is, of course, what fascism always tries to do. It essentially hides within the cloak of freedom of speech and democracy and the rule of law in order to destroy and undermine all of those things. What she's essentially talking about, especially when she says things like union-led, she wants to purge leftists, any kind of remotely leftist person from authority. And we've seen that as well from other people at the Tory party conference who talked about purging universities of but essentially enemies of the Conservative Party. And of course, this goes beyond just the potential sort of government overreach of trying to protect legitimate national state secrets, as you mentioned, and goes into the fact that it's obviously trying to curtail and put a freeze on any kind of whistleblowing about corruption, which of course was rampant in the Conservative Party. And that's what this is. It's score settling. It's petty, bureaucratic, fascistic score settling with leftists, an attempt to purge people of a different political persuasion, which is essentially the first thing that fascists always try and do. They'll either go after the arts, or in this case, I suppose, academia, or they'll go after the civil service. Positions of power.
Yeah, and in one of her recent interviews, she said how careful she is with her words, and she never says anything she regrets. But following that, she came out with the most crazy things. I mean, she said that maternity pay was too high, and that women and families should rely more on their personal responsibility rather than having, rights for workers. She said that working in McDonald's suddenly made her working class. And now we have people around Badenoch saying, oh, don't worry, she was joking about the civil service comments. I mean, Badenoch, far from being careful, I mean, she seems like a complete liability. I mean, she is what, second favourite is becoming Tory leader?
Yeah, she's currently second favourite, and realistically, I think the bookmakers have Jenrick as first and her as a close second, and those are the two. Albeit that Cleverly seems to have done well with his speech, but I mean, there were 5 weeks to go, who knows? But yeah, she's a loose cannon. The idea that she chooses her words carefully, God only knows what she'd do if she let her lips fly a little bit. It's ridiculous, right? She, in addition to all of the gaffes you just mentioned, she also said that the minimum wage was too high and was hurting businesses. So look, literally just coming out with the worst ideas that no one agrees with. She wants to turbocharge neoliberalism, which is exactly the problem that got Liz Truss into so much danger. And of course, Liz Truss reared her ugly head again at the conference, going on about how she would have done so much better than Rishi Sunak at the general election. Except, of course, she was kicked out before she even got to that point. So clearly not. Clearly and obviously not.
I mean, this feels like a reversal of the Labour leadership competition, because you had Keir Starmer pretending to be a lefty to get elected as leader, then pivots to the centre-right. These guys, right, you know they believe this sort of stuff when they say the minimum wage is too high because they're pro-business, right?
Yeah.
They don't like these sorts of things. So it's the opposite of Starmer, but in the way it's probably similar because, I mean, look, even though we know they believe these things, you would think, why are they talking about it openly? They don't exactly sound like popular things to say, especially on maternity pay, an insane thing to say. Do you think they're just courting the membership? And if they were to become leader, pivot to the so-called centre? When I say pivot, though, not like Keir Starmer actually pivoting in his policy, but pretending to pivot to be more moderate. Do you think that's in play? Or actually, are they like, do you know what? We're not doing this sort of playing by the same rules anymore. We're trying to get reform voters. We're going to be radical, and we're going to keep it even up to a general election.
Well, they're not even courting Conservative voters yet, because, of course, there's another round of eliminations via MPs until they get down to the final two. So essentially, it looks like it's going to be Robert Jenrick and probably Kemi Badenoch, which are literally the two worst options from the Conservatives' own long-term standing. It's the worst they could possibly do. I desperately hope that they elect Kemi Badenoch, because she's a lunatic who will destroy the Conservative Party, which I think in the long run is a lot better for the country. She is, of course, an horrific transphobe and culture warrior of all kinds. She does genuinely believe the appalling idea she's putting forward. And of course, she, in her speech today, she said that she wanted a root and branch reform of every single aspect of what the British state does, which is essentially code for I want to privatise the NHS. That's what we all know that to be. So she's a true believer in that sense. But she won't have any chance to enact those policies because she'll have destroyed the Conservative Party. In trying to chase the reform vote, they essentially disregard 75% of the country and make themselves completely unelectable.
Yeah.
So if they want to destroy themselves, elect Jenrick or Badenoch, and it looks like they're going to.
The problem I have with this argument is that many people say, I want the Tories to elect the most radical leader. They will lose. And yes, in terms of electability, I completely agree. Badenoch, well, anyone in the leadership race isn't going to win an election.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's largely out of their hands. What worries me, though, is legitimising these sorts of arguments. For me, the way I see the map of politics right now is Labour's going to win the next election with or without Keir Starmer, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, let's throw that in there. But the debate is what worries me. Now, for me, I would want to see a more quote-unquote moderate Tory leader, because at least in terms of the debate, they won't be talking about, I don't know, Badenoch didn't say scrapping maternity pay, but she alluded to there was an issue with it, and the minimum wage. And I feel like, given that Labour are very happy to parrot right-wing myths and lies, they're more likely to fall into that trap. So what worries me is Kemi Badenoch becoming leader, and she just pulls Labour to the right. Whereas if there was a more centrist Tory leader, even though they're not going to win, it might give more space for Labour not to go down the right-wing pipeline, because they already have anyway.
Well, exactly.
That's my argument.
Firstly, they already have, and I don't see that changing fundamentally anytime soon. And secondly, there is no non-extreme example. What I'm talking about is not choosing the most extreme, but choosing the most obviously crazy, the one that the public can see through. James Cleverly is quite a good salesman of the same crazy bullshit. Tom Tugendhat is a less effective but still seemingly nice guy who can sell those arguments. They all believe fundamentally in the same precepts, right? They all want to get rid of remove us from the ECHR. They all believe that immigration needs to be vastly curtailed and that we need to set up Rwanda +++. They all fundamentally believe in one-upping themselves on who can deep-throat Israel the most, which has been a fantastic, just cavalcade of madness, including the story I think we'll talk about later with Bobby J. So they all fundamentally believe the same nonsense, be it social, economic, or foreign policy. It's just that some of them are able to sell it in a more sane fashion and might be more electable, whereas Kemi Badenoch and Bobby Jenrick aren't either of those things. They're just crazy bastards who can't really control it or hide it. And I think the public will see through that.
Well, we're going to get to the comments a bit later on, but leave a comment. Who do you think is... who do you side with? Me, where I say I think it's better to have a more moderate leader? Or do you think Kevin's right, that actually... I mean, even though we largely agree, but, I want to see what people think about that.
If you're wrong and you agree with my fine co-host here, tell me who the moderate candidate is exactly. Because I've looked.
And by the way, when I
can't
say
see
moderate,
one.
I'm doing this. You can't see it on screen because there is, and that's something me and you definitely agree on. There is no moderate.
Yeah, they're not.
So
They're
I want to make sure I'm cut off screen if I'm doing that. But anyway, make sure you drop any comments in there. We are going to read them out, so keep them coming. And we are going to move on to our second story. Now, you mentioned Tom Tugendhat. He calls for the Thatcher-style revolution. During his final conference speech, Tom Tugendhat said, "Real growth, not the illusion of growth, that has been boosted by migration, has barely shifted in the past 30 years. Now that's left us poorer and more vulnerable. We need to free the economy. We need a new conservative revolution. That's what Margaret Thatcher did. That's what we need to do again, and we can do it." Tugendhat also blasted the Labour Party, seemingly calling them socialist. He attacks Labour and socialism as a whole. He said, we're building on the strong foundations of the past, and I'm standing because I believe in Britain. I have fought for Britain, and I've had enough of those who want to manage decline. That's what socialism delivers. It's not who I am, it's not who you are, and it's nothing more too fatal to a mission that losing faith in the future. Nothing is more fatal to success than setting our ambitions so low that we don't even try. And nothing is more fatal to a nation than giving up on our belief in it. That's why we must win. Not in 10 years, not in 15, but in 5. We can't afford Labour. The country can't afford socialism. We can't afford to wait. And I will not wait. It's time to seize the moment and turn this around. Labour are socialists. It's not the first time someone has said that. Kevin, I want to get your response here. Despite the fact that we are still living in neoliberalism, nothing has fundamentally changed from Thatcherism.
Yeah.
Why is Tugendhat calling for a Thatcherite revolution?
Because it's the only thing they know. They've essentially become a kind of Thatcherite religious cult. And they have the same reaction that all religious cults do. When things don't work, do more of the same thing because it's what the dear leader wanted, or the dear leader asked for, or demanded, or whatever. They know one thing, and it's just more neoliberalism. Even though we saw with Liz Truss neoliberalism taken to its nth degree, and how disastrous that is immediately, because even the uber capitalists know what an absolute disgrace it is, and how obviously destructive that those kind of policies are. And it's not him alone who's making this kind of, frankly, batshit argument. Kemi Badenoch claimed that all of the Tory governments essentially were continuations of the Labour government, which I would agree with if she meant that they were all continuations, furtherances of Margaret Thatcher's government. But she means the previous Labour government were left-wing, and they continue to remain being left-wing, which is interesting considering she served 3 prime ministers who she thinks were left-wing, but who wants to be the leader of the Conservative Party. It's almost as if she's talking shite and just making things up, because anything to avoid the obvious conclusion that actually our policies are enormously destructive and unpopular. No one likes us and we have no chance of winning. So let's just double down.
I like that he says we don't want to continue this managed decline. Is he admitting then that for 14 years we have had a managed decline?
Yeah. Oh, well,
I
exactly.
don't think he was... I think that's what happens when you don't actually have a real analysis. You just say all sorts of shit and it trips you up. But I do want you to respond to his comment about immigration providing fake growth. I mean, growth is growth, whether it comes from migration or not. He doesn't sound particularly economically literate.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he mean by the illusion of growth? And also, how would his Thatcherite revolution bring growth? How is it any different to what Liz Truss talked about or Rachel Reeves by growing the economy seemingly without state investment? We know that with Liz Truss. There was a state investment-led growth programme under Rachel Reeves, which was the Green Prosperity Plan. But as we know, that got watered down, so they're just pushing neoliberalism again.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, he's essentially trying to dog whistle racism to the Conservative base and indeed to other members of the Conservative parliamentary party, so that he can become a leader. Right now, he has no realistic chance, but he's fighting the good fight, so to speak. And so he's dog whistling racism in a way that's within the confines of his like economic one nation conservative bullshit. He's trying to be the heir to Thatcher, right? So that's what he's trying to do. Now, but the actual crux of his argument, there is a kernel of truth to, but in nowhere near the way he means. When he says it brings fake growth, in essence, it kind of does, because you're not creating growth; you're bringing in other people's growth. Rather than those people being in, the places they're originally from, building up the economic base there and being productive and creative and wonderful there, they're coming to us. So essentially, we're continuing to extract resources from the global south, right? And of course, it's something of a kind of a bubble that waits to burst, because we know that the older cohort is getting larger and larger each generation, and therefore you have a smaller and smaller tax base funding a larger and larger non-economically productive anymore class within society, pensioners.
I mean, would you say he's
people.
right then? Would you say he's right for the wrong reasons? He's kind of
right for entirely the wrong reasons, because, like you say, he doesn't have any kind of materialist analysis of this. He means it in some weird racist, like, oh, brown people coming in, they're just going to import the third world. All this rubbish or all this racist shite. What I'm referring to is the fact that you can't just have an increasing amount of people coming in to create a larger and larger cohort each generation, because that's just exponential growth, which is unsustainable. Essentially, you have to balance out your own birth rate. I know that sounds like a weird Nazi talking point, but essentially, in order to sort of curtail the problem, you have to actually create your own people in the place, and you have to get the economic system in place where you don't need a larger and larger and larger group of people funding this system. You actually tax properly so that you can have that relatively smaller tax base that then takes care of the system entirely, because you're actually taxing the people that have the money to be able to pay for the system. We're not a poor country. We create enormous amounts of wealth. At the same time that everyone's wealth has been massively decreasing, the number of billionaires in this country has quadrupled. That is where your wealth has gone. That's where the taxable wealth that could pay for things like getting rid of the rack problem in schools, building HS2, funding the green projects that we need for the future energy supply. All of these things could be taken care of in a way that the Tories would never ever allow for. So when I say he's right, I mean he's incidentally hit upon a point whilst being a racist prick that has some kernel of sort of truth to it in a way he could never possibly understand. You are muted at my end.
That's again me.
Yep.
Muted again.
There
That's the second time that's happened actually in a row. We're professionals here. There is a discussion to be had when it comes to levels of immigration and our economic system. Now, I find it quite ironic that conservatives who push the low regulation, global capitalists economic system then moan about high levels of migrants, when that comes with this system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, for us leftists, we don't talk about capping migration because we don't think it's a problem. But in a way, it's like, why don't the conservatives or right-leaning people adopt left-wing economic policies, some of it? Because then actually, if you invested in your own country, if you invested in jobs, invested in nursing and doctors, you wouldn't have to rely on importing labour. It's very funny. There's a disconnect there. And I feel like, to me, that means none of these people are actually serious about reducing immigration.
No,
because
they're not.
if you say to them, if you want to reduce immigration, but I don't think we should, but if you want to, you have to fundamentally change your economic system. We have to do away with neoliberalism. And they go, oh, well, don't really like that. I quite like this form of capitalism.
Well,
and they keep immigration as a salient issue in order to win elections on.
Well, exactly, yeah. If they wanted to tackle immigration, they could have done so at any point in the last 14 years. But instead, we've seen numbers massively increase. I remember as a younger man hearing about mass migration under Tony Blair. And the numbers that he was allowing into the country have been dwarfed by the Conservative governments of the last 14 years. So if they were serious about tackling immigration, they could have done so. In fact, they've been, frankly, in terms of numbers coming in, the most liberal of any government that's ever been in Britain, right? We've seen massive numbers of people coming in, which can be absolutely dealt with if you invest in the infrastructure, because we've already got housing shortages, and if you add more people to that, obviously that becomes a problem. Obviously there's strain on the NHS, etc., which can be gotten around by taxing rich people and spending on the infrastructure, right? So there's that, right? Like you say, if you invest in your own country, it becomes less of an issue. And secondly, on a kind of global scale, about, like I say, taking wealth essentially in human capital from the global south, if they are indeed set on a kind of bigger, longer scale solution to the problem, stop economically destroying places and stop literally physically destroying places by bombing them. Because people don't generally tend to want to get up and move 4,000 miles away on foot. They leave because the place they're in has been destroyed, either economically or physically with Western bombs, or in many cases both. That's why they're leaving. If they're from that place, they'll stay in that place. Most people do. Roughly speaking, within 100 miles of where you're born is probably where you're going to die. And that's fine. People are the way they are. And so don't fund and adore and absolutely praise systems that you know are going to create the very people, migrants, that you don't want to be here. Whether they want that to be the case because they're racist or not, if you actually don't want those people to leave those places, stop fucking destroying those places.
Also, they should take climate seriously, because if they don't want millions of climate refugees, then they would tackle the climate emergency.
Yeah, we know
which
this.
They won't do. I mean, was it a
third of humanity?
Like climate emergency?
Oh, they're all idiots. I think I made a note here. Kemi Badenoch compared environmentalism to communism. She said it was rebranded communism. She's a fucking idiot. Okay. So they're all in that kind of way. Yeah, a third of humanity lives within 100 miles of the coast. Those people aren't just going to keep moving inland and inland onto smaller and smaller parcels of land. They're going to move to other places. The people of Polynesia don't disappear overnight. Their islands do, they remain, and they're going to go places. Some of the places will be here, and they don't like that. The Tories don't like that, apparently, and yet they are more than happy to, personally go and punch a polar bear to death to prove how against environmentalism they are. They want to lock up, just up oil protesters for doing nothing for 1,000,000 years to show how absolutely authoritarian they are. As well as, of course, destroying the ozone layer and taking private jets down the pub, frankly, if they could. It's ridiculous, and ultimately they sort of don't care because, again, as we kind of pointed out earlier, it's surface level. They have the most scant reading of the situation to the point where they believe like Facebook boomer memes because they seem vaguely plausible, and they're based on nothing.
Precisely. Now, before we go on to our next story, I just want to say that if you like what we do, you can subscribe and share our content. Get the name out there. Okay, we're not big enough yet. I want people knowing who Turn Left are. So if you're watching now, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm. Share it. We're also on Twitter streaming, so retweet this. Tweet this to your lefty mates. Tweet this to your right-wing mates. If you've got any, let's get a name out there. If you want to see us grow, then that does require money. So you can support us if you go to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly or give us any one-off donation. We're approaching 15k subs. We're about 50 away. But our long-term goal is for us to become full-time, and it means we can produce more content. So let's grow a socialist media alternative to take on the establishment commentariat, and you can be part of the journey. I want to go to some of your comments now. Make sure you keep them in throughout the show, but let's bring the first one up. Zeke, da beast. Good to see you again. Waiting song is dope, better than elevator music. It slaps, doesn't it? It slaps. That's why I don't mind waiting 10 minutes, because it's a good tune. Double D, Trump proves people like Kemi have a sizable market for their unhinged ravings. I mean, they certainly do in the US. I mean, I wouldn't say there's a bigger market over here. Doesn't mean it can't. I mean, there's arguments we thought this country would not be having. But we've decided to import culture war debates anyway. So I certainly think that number could grow, but I don't think it's as prevalent here than it is in the US. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your name. I'm just going to say we jock. Curtis looking blinged up tonight. Thank you.
Excuse me.
I really appreciate it.
We jock Poopong McPlop is one of the greatest characters in comedy history, and you will put some respect on that goddamn name.
Bring up the old comment again. Go on, bring it up again. I wanna pronounce it. We jock Poop Pong MC Plop.
McPlop. He's Scottish.
Klopp.
Come on now. It's a Blackadder reference. Never mind, I've interrupted you. Go for it.
It's a it's a little bit before my time, I think.
Why
I've heard of
before
it,
my
though.
time as
I've
well? I'm not
heard of
that
Black-
old. Jesus. Go on, sorry.
I've obviously heard of Blackadder, but it's not something I particularly watch. Edward Sexby, good to see you again. The minimum wage is actually a legally mandated starvation level wage, along with tax credits and in-work benefits. It is, in effect, a huge state subsidy of employers, collective bargaining instead. I disagree. I mean, we need to have a minimum wage to make sure that there is at least a bottom level to pay people, because if there was no minimum wage, most employees would pay less than that. It's just that the minimum wage needs to be a living wage. Where I do agree is state benefits going to employers. Of course, tax credits, universal credit, housing benefit. Given the fact that people aren't earning enough, we are subsidising landlords, for example. It's why universal basic income, a popular idea on the left and the right, by the way, something I'm very sceptical of, because it's the state propping up profits for companies. But again, that just means we need higher wages. Of course, collective bargaining is one, but I think a higher minimum wage is also another. James Holmes, been a member for 8 months. Thank you. I've seen your name pop up a few times. I really appreciate your supports. Katie Marshall, see you there again, becoming a YouTube member. Thank you so much. Jim Speak, also good to see you again. Generic should get the Star of David tattoo above his port of entrance. How do we know he doesn't already? Just saying. And that is it for all our comments. So we will move on. And speaking of Generic, we're talking about him now. So Robert Generic, he is the current frontrunner to become the new Tory leader. He said something incredibly bizarre. He thinks it's a good idea for the Star of David to be displayed at every point of entry in the UK. The Tory leadership frontrunner told a Conservative Friends of Israel event he wanted Britain to be the most welcoming country in the world for Israelis and the Jewish community. He said that while Immigration Minister, he had pushed for Israelis travelling to Britain to be able to use e-gates. He said this would mean that at every airport and point of entry to our great country, there was a Star of David as a symbol that we support Israel. Now, might I say, we don't all support Israel. But moral arguments aside, this is just really weird. I mean, why would we want to show some allegiance to another state? This is the United Kingdom, not Israel. Kevin, the Star of David welcoming people to the country. What do you make of that?
I'm a little bit confused. Does Bobby Generic, is he under the impression that he's trying to become the leader of Israel or the leader of the United Kingdom? Because he seems to be under some sort of illusion that he's running for the Knesset or something. I'm not sure. Yeah, very, very odd. And again, like I say, they were falling over themselves to be more pro-Israel than the other candidates. It was frankly, genuinely embarrassing. He was stood at a Conservative Friends of Israel gathering at the Conservative Conference in my own hometown of Birmingham. Yay. In a hoodie that said Hamas are terrorists. I mean, hot take. And then said that there needs to be a Star of David at every entry port to the country, which is just weird. Like, would that make Jewish people feel more welcome? Because I think they'd just be a little bit freaked out by that, wouldn't they? I don't know any Jewish people who would want that to be the case. I mean, they wouldn't necessarily care that much, but I think a lot of them would be genuinely freaked out. And of course, when he says we stand with Israel, and this goes for the rather disgusting Conservative Prime Minister that we currently have, when he said the same thing. And by the way, he's gone back to referring to Israel as she again. I don't know why you need gendered pronouns for a nation state, but there we go. Who is the we to which they refer there? Because it's not the British people. The British people, when polled by YouGov, found that only 17% of them viewed Israel positively, whereas nearly 7 in 10 viewed them negatively. Massively polarised since October the 7th. There was a lot of goodwill immediately after October 7th, which Israel then destroyed by destroying the West Bank, destroying Gaza and parts of the West Bank, and now destroying Lebanon. And presumably going to attack Iran as well now, I imagine. They don't speak for the British people. They have something completely at odds with the British people, their opinion. And this goes back to the Jam Man again, I think. You can tell why they took so much time and effort to get rid of him. Because they couldn't have the hegemony of the Westminster bubble and its opinion about foreign affairs challenged in any way whatsoever. He was a genuine threat to the status quo. So they had to get rid of him. And frankly, if they hadn't been able to get rid of him that way, I think they might have gone to more drastic measures in the end, in all honesty. If he'd become Prime Minister, I don't think he'd have lived out a first term. That's how seriously I think they would have taken it. And now they love it. They love that he will go out there and just parrot the same bullshit. As bombs fall on major settlements full of people, we're supposed to sit here and cry salt tears for Israel getting a tiny sliver of what it gives out daily to the people of Palestine and now Lebanon. No, it's ridiculous. These people don't represent the British people. They don't represent the British people's views. I don't stand with Israel. Fuck Israel.
I find it quite interesting when, well, I mean, you brought up Jeremy Corbyn. Let's talk about him for a second. When he tried to bring the Labour Party back to where it's supposed to be with its centre-left policies. I don't want to hear anyone call it hard left. I challenge you every single time. I don't think ending austerity investment is hard left. He was told by those inside and outside the party in the media, well, you have to appeal to the electorate. You can't be too left-wing, okay? That's very funny. Now, juxtapose that with Robert Jenrick saying, we're incredibly pro-Israel. We stand with Israel. And as you pointed out, 17% of the voters support Israel. Basically, Israel isn't popular. Why isn't anyone saying to him, hold on a second, do you not need to meet where people are at? Because most people don't support what Israel's doing. Funny when it comes to that, isn't it? It's only levelled when you use left-wing economic policy or actually foreign policy that's about justice and peace. Suddenly you have to moderate your language, you have to be a bit more centrist or moderate about it. But you can say extreme things like we should put a religious faith, one religious faith, not all of them, but one image of Judaism, the Star of David, on all entry ports to make Israelis and Jewish people feel safe. But okay, then why don't we put display the Quran everywhere and say, look, many Muslim majority countries are being bombed with our help. Let's say to them, we care about you, we're welcoming them, and try and pitch that to anyone in the Tory party. They'd lose their mind.
The Tory party are filled with the kind of latent racism that thinks that just mosques existing in Britain is a sign that the Muslimics have taken over. And yet, for some reason, the idea of absolutely cucking ourselves out to a foreign nation under the guise of religious toleration of Jewish people, which, by the way, they don't obviously give a fuck about at all, is madness that they would ever be okay with that. Like, if Muslims just existing is them taking over, what the hell would this thing be exactly? Like, who are they trying to govern in the interests of? Because it's not the British people, and it's not British Jewish people either. Israel is essentially a Western outpost. It is an American away ground, for so to speak, right? It's their thing, that they're there to do our bidding in a region full of people who don't want us to do the bidding. And that's all that this is. They don't give a fuck about Jewish people either in Israel or outside of Israel. And indeed, frankly, neither did the Israeli government. We've seen the way they've treated Orthodox Jewish people who have campaigned against the current ongoing wars.
Precisely.
They couldn't give two fucks about Jewish people. They care about Zionism. And those two things are very different, and frankly, are enemies of one another.
I agree. We are going to move on to our last story, but it's all quite connected, actually. Now, as I said at the beginning of the show, despite tonight being the Conservative Party conference special, we had news last night which saw an escalation of the conflict in the Middle East, meaning that we simply couldn't ignore this story. So, last night, Iran fired around 200 missiles into Israel. So far, there doesn't seem to be any deaths reported. Iran has launched a barrage of missiles at Israel in an attack Benjamin Netanyahu labelled a major mistake. As he said, it will pay. In a move anticipated by officials, nearly 200 missiles were launched on Tuesday evening, according to Israel's army radio. The attack, in retaliation for Israel's campaign against the Hezbollah group in Lebanon, marks a significant escalation in the Middle East conflict. Now, that is a quote. Obviously, I disagree with the way that quote is framed. Now, this has received widespread condemnation across the West. Prime Minister Keir Starmer gave his statement.
Good evening. In the last few hours, the Iranian regime has launched over 200 ballistic missiles at civilian targets in Israel. It's too soon to assess the impact fully, but I utterly condemn this attempt by the Iranian regime to harm innocent Israelis, to escalate this incredibly dangerous situation and push the region ever closer to the brink. It cannot be tolerated. We stand with Israel and we recognize her right to self-defense in the face of this aggression. Iran must stop these attacks, together with its proxies like Hezbollah. Iran has menaced the Middle East for far too long. Chaos and destruction brought not just to Israel, but to the people they live amongst in Lebanon and beyond.
Now, I just want to quickly offer a correction. My producers just said that there was one death, a Palestinian in the West Bank. They were hit by a shrapnel. But looking at that video there, I mean, Keir Starmer is blaming the escalation on Iran, saying he stands by Israel in the face of aggression. It is, as Kevin pointed out earlier, it's so strange that he keeps referring to Israel as her. I think it's pretty creepy, actually. Now, following the same rhetoric, Robert Jenrick tweeted this. Tonight we have seen a terrible and unprovoked attack against Israel by Iran, the world's chief sponsor of terrorism. There can be no more appeasement. We must stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel, our ally, just as we have with Ukraine. All the support necessary to win this war must be given to Israel so they can defeat the evil Iranian regime. That was Robert Jenrick saying the attack by Iran was unprovoked. I mean, that's quite astonishing. I mean, he and everyone else are ignoring the facts that Israel attacked Iran in April, in which no one in the West called out. Iran then responded because they have a right to defend themselves, in which it received wide condemnation. Along with that, you've got the occupation in Palestine. Israel's committed multiple terror attacks in Lebanon, plus a ground invasion. But Jenrick tweets out that Israel was the victim of an unprovoked attack. Now, Israel has vowed that they will retaliate big. Mr. Netanyahu said there is a deliberate and murderous hand behind this attack. It comes from Tehran, he continued. We will stand by the rule we established. Whoever attacks us, we will attack him. His comments came after IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari labelled the attack extensive and said there will be repercussions. We have plans. Iran has already said it will respond to any retaliation. If that isn't enough, Netanyahu has also barred the UN Secretary Antonio Guterres from the country. Israel's foreign minister says UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is persona non grata in Israel and is barred from entering the country. Israel Katz says his decision is a response to Guterres' failure to unequivocally condemn Iran's missile attack on Israel on Tuesday. He accuses the UN chief of being anti-Israel and giving support to terrorists, rapists and murderers. Guterres will be remembered as a stain on the history of the UN for generations to come. Yesterday, the UN chief condemned the broadening of the Middle East conflict with escalation after escalation and called for a ceasefire. I don't think anyone can argue that Israel isn't a rogue state. Now, a few hours ago, we've confirmed that 3 people have been killed by Israel in a strike. 3 people have been killed in an Israeli strike on Damascus, Syrian state media reports. 3 civilians were killed and 3 others were wounded in an Israeli strike in the Mezar neighborhood of Damascus on Wednesday, Syrian state news agency Sana said, citing a military source. The strike targeted a residential building and caused damage to private properties nearby. Asked about reports of the strike, the Israeli military told CNN that it does not comment on foreign reports. Kevin, I mean, there are a lot of things to cover here. I'll start by the claim from Jenrick and insinuated from Starmer that this was unprovoked.
Unprovoked, totally unprovoked. Look, Israel is just a small bean. They're so helpless. They're surrounded by people who don't like them. I wonder why that might be the case. Jesus Christ, like they haven't been doing a genocide. in the Gaza Strip for the last year. Well, in fact, actually, they've been doing it for 70 years, but, you know, more intensely so in the last year. As if they haven't been destroying diplomatic immunity by killing Iranian officials, by blowing up parts of their embassies. As if they haven't just launched a ground invasion against the foreign sovereign nation of Lebanon, as if they haven't been firing consistently on basically all of their neighbours. And by the way, with British complicity as well, because there have been planes taking off from RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, a British airbase. So we are literally not just passively selling weapons to the Israelis, we are actively engaged in the genocide they've been undertaking. The idea that this is unprovoked is laughable to the point of, just disbelief. I don't know what to say to that. He can't possibly believe it. He must be lying, because he's not actually insane. He must just be lying. That's the only thing I can think here. And of course, flip the script, right? I've always said it for the last year now. Compare and contrast the way in which Western media and Western politicians talk about the Russian illegal aggression against Ukraine and Israel's illegal aggression against Palestine and indeed others. That's always an interesting juxtaposition. But you don't even have to go that far afield anymore. Just compare the same politicians and same media outlets' response to the way in which Israel has been bombing civilians and the way in which Israel is now having its civilians bombed. Because for the longest time, I was told that if you have your buildings in heavily densely populated areas, you're using human shields. Hamas was using human shields. Hezbollah is using human shields because they've got their offices in like a tower block or something. Whereas apparently Mossad, having their headquarters in the middle of Tel Aviv in a high, built-up district, apparently that's not human shields. That's Iran wanting to kill innocent Jewish people. And of course, that juxtaposition tells you everything you need to know about this. The incredible levels of Western chauvinism, on top of the fact that there's just an enormous amount of racism. They don't mind killing brown people. If brown people are being murdered, they're absolutely fine with that. Whereas the Israelis are seen as white enough, basically. It's absolute madness. And they've discovered now, the Israelis all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, have discovered that actually shelling settlements is bad. Shelling the urban areas is a bad thing. That they've also been doing for the last 18 months and indeed decades before that. It's farcical. And I feel like I'm losing my mind when I see the media just going along this line. They've all been constantly ignoring and using passive voice to describe how Palestinians just kind of died. Whereas now it's Iran launches mega super holocaust on Israel. Everyone feels sorry for Israel. It's honestly, genuinely upsetting.
And that's the thing, I mean, obviously I was corrected, but I said no one had died, and obviously there was a Palestinian that was killed by shrapnel. But no Israeli was killed from the strike. And they're acting, that was the worst strike we've ever seen. But when hundreds of people are killed on two, I call it terrorist attacks in Lebanon from Israel, or the up to hundreds of thousands of people, Palestinians, have been killed, that's different. It's very funny how they do that. You know, I find it incredibly ironic that Hagari is calling these strikes from Iran extensive. I mean, as I said, there's no reported deaths. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, including children and babies, because Hamas killed around 700 in October. Now, there's a couple of figures there. People say it's 1,200. The latest figures I've looked into is around 700 to 800 just innocent people, and the rest of them are the IDF. He asked me, I don't give a rat's ass about the IDF. They're an occupying force. So whenever I look at the number, I say about 700. But given that within Israel, most people think Israel's response has either been proportionate or not hard enough, do you expect there to be a shift now? Since basically what Israel was doing, they are getting some retaliation, or do you think this will actually rally the people even further, and rather than undermining Netanyahu, this will bolster him? I mean, clearly he can no longer claim this is all about keeping Israel safe when it objectively isn't.
Well, that will be the interesting thing. Generally speaking, as we've seen with Gaza, if you shell civilians, it does tend to get their backs up and they tend to resist more fervently. it tends to harden the hearts and minds of the people that live in those areas, right? And so I expect personally that Benjamin Netanyahu will use this and be able to continue and be prime minister and avoid the much deserved jail sentence that he would get otherwise. And that's ultimately what this is. It's one man's desire to avoid the repercussions of his own and indeed his wife's corruption. To the tune of hundreds of thousands of lives. It's genuinely repulsive. So I think that's what will happen. But he is very unpopular. We have already seen a nationwide strike, albeit relatively ineffective, but large protests and large demonstrations against him. And this might spur those on again, especially if you get repeated rounds of this, because the Iron Dome was very ineffective. As much as not many people were killed or injured, when people see the illusion of protection that the Iron Dome was supposed to give them shattered, stripped away from them when 9 in 10 of these rockets were getting through, it was genuinely mad to think they've spent all this money, all the US taxpayers' money, on this Iron Dome system that clearly just doesn't work with modern rocketry. It isn't suitable for this kind of warfare at all. They may well turn on him. They may well ask that this stops now, because they're the ones facing repercussions. And when it's always easy to be pro-war when you're not the one facing the consequences. All of a sudden, you get a little taste of those consequences, and a lot of pacifists emerge. So we'll wait and see, I suppose. But I hope it has the latter of those effects.
I mean, what I find quite interesting is I was referring to a poll, multiple polls within Israeli society, that most of them support the scale of the attack on Palestine. Like I said, the two most favourable opinions are it's about right or not hard enough. But then you couple that with the fact that Netanyahu is very, very unpopular. So I want to kind of decipher what that unpopularity actually is. It can't be because they disagree with him on policy, because seemingly they don't.
Yeah.
But possibly they think, even though we think we should be extremely strong on Hamas and, by extension, Palestine, maybe they do see Netanyahu as a loose cannon, and maybe they think he's less safe. I wonder what you can probably decipher from this sort of gap between the popularity for the policy and not the popularity for the man.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the vast majority of people who oppose him are themselves Zionists, because obviously the vast majority of Israeli citizens, or let's say of Jewish Israeli citizens, are Zionists. And so, the vast majority of these people are hardline Zionists themselves, who think that actually he's hurting Zionism, ultimately, by being ineffective or going too far too soon type thing. And, of course, his absolute lack of giving a shit about the actual hostages. Because whilst a lot of them use the bring home the hostages, or indeed sausages, as one Prime Minister referred to them delightfully, they use the phrase release the hostages or bring home the hostages as a kind of propaganda tool. A lot of people actually do genuinely want that. A lot of people think that should be the war goal, that they want those people back. And he has shown absolutely that he doesn't give a fuck about them. He has killed many of them, of course. The Israeli government have literally murdered their own people. And have not really tried. They could have had all of these people back if they'd agreed to any number of the deals along the route that Hamas and various other people have negotiated. He's not interested in any of that, and I think a lot of people see through him now. I think a lot of people realise that this is what he is. He's just a bloodthirsty, warmongering piece of shit who's doing it to cover his own ass, and they've had enough. So it's not that this is some sort of anti-Zionist uprising. This is a fracturing within Zionism based upon the personality of one genuinely evil motherfucker.
Yeah. I want to get your reaction to Starmer's statement. We talked about generic and calling it unprovoked, which was crazy. But that, to me, was striking. That was pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Barely a peep.
There was no sort of extra layer saying, look, we want peace in the region. We want to, we want Israel to restrain, but also we want Iran to stop attacking. There was no appeal to diplomacy there. It was quite literally very similar to any Tory leadership contest member,
Yeah.
anyone running in the Tory leadership, it seemed exactly the same. It was, we unequivocally stand with Israel. Iran is the bad guy of the area. It's a regime. Look, it is a regime, right? I'm not standing Iran here. I'm simply adhering to international law. Iran has the right to defend themselves. It's not an endorsement of them. But the idea that Iran is the only bad guy in the Middle East, to me, one screams of favoritism, obviously because of Israel, and also racism.
Yeah.
But I thought that was an incredibly disgusting statement. So I want to get your thoughts on Starmer's statement.
It was genuinely disgusting. Barely a peep out of him in sympathy for the hundreds of thousands destroyed, the entire cities razed to the ground in Gaza, and indeed various other parts of the Middle East by Israeli actions over the years. And then as the second they get even, like I say, a tiny little sliver of their own medicine, he's out there deep-throating the boot in extraordinarily pathetic, cucked fashion. And again, referring to them as her or she. I think it goes beyond just being creepy and weird. I think there is actually a kind of paternalistic element within humanity that's being sort of turned into racism there. That it's to feminize Israel is to say, look what these evil barbaric people are doing to
it's
a
careful
woman,
language,
right?
isn't it?
It's
very
essentially
deliberate.
trying to make Israel seem like the weak prey that's being preyed on by these evil savages, these sand people. That's the sort of imagery that they're trying to conjure up. I think it's a very subtle and pernicious bit of Hasbro propaganda, basically. And the fact that he keeps doing this when he thinks he can get away with it is genuinely appalling, and shows that, whether he truly believes it or not, because he, of course, used to be sort of anti-Israel when it suited him, because the leader the leader of the party was sort of anti-Israel as well in Jeremy Corbyn. But now that he can get away with it, maybe he's showing his true colours. Who knows with Keir Starmer? Who knows whether he truly believes anything? Whether he has a single political thought or theory or set of principles in his head or not. I think he would happily sell out Israel if America told them to, or whatever. If the zeitgeist changed all of a sudden.
If America says it, that's if you want to know Keir Starmer's allegiance, it's the USA. And I think why does he keep referring to Israel as her? Part of it is that sort of racial supremacy, as you alluded to.
Yeah.
But also, I think, and I've found this particularly with Keir Starmer, I've seen it for years, I think he's a huge sycophant. And I think he has this weird fetish or fetishization of appealing to power or groveling for power.
Yeah.
Like the way he speaks, when he talks about how we've got all these businessmen coming into the party, these rich billionaires, the way he speaks is like they're his little master, and he's like, yes sir, yes sir. I've picked it up over the years, and it's a very strange thing. He loves showing the world how much of a cuck, how much of a bitch to capital he is. And I think that's the same when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to the US and Israel. I think he just desperately wants to show the world that he's a good little boy and he will do as he's told, which is what Washington tells him to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, as I mentioned earlier, there's a reason they got rid of the previous Labour leader and were so desperate to do so.
Yeah.
Because they need essentially a piece of putty that they can mould into whatever shape they need him to be. He can believe anything, he can argue any position, including positions completely diametric to the ones he held yesterday. It's very sort of Orwellian, I suppose, in that we were never at war with East Asia, we were always at war with Eurasia, and anyone who says differently is against the party, or whatever, it's that sort of thing. He will say whatever the powerful want him to say, basically. And again, I refer to him as different to the powerful because I don't think he ultimately is that powerful. I think he's at behest of people like the Labour Together folks, the Pat McFadden,
precisely,
and people like that. I think, frankly, the government is being run by two women in a very girl boss way, in Rachel Reeves as Chancellor and Sue Gray as, I don't know, de facto Queen or something. I'm not sure. So yeah, he's ultimately he is a kind of cock. He's a pathetic toadying lackey who is quite happy about that in a way. Yeah, it's sort of sad.
Yeah, I agree. Starmer's not particularly powerful himself. He's obviously in a position of power, But the real people behind him, Rachel Reeves is one, Sue Gray, but also Morgan McSweeney and the Labour Together lot.
Yep.
Don't be surprised if Labour Together dispose of Keir Starmer and put in Streeting or Reeves. The whole, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I went into the sort of obviously the anti-Semitism crisis, the one that's concocted by, it turns out, by Labour Together. They specifically looked for, as you described, a bit of putty.
Yeah.
You mould him. He's a vacuum. He has no political principles. Maybe there was a one time when he was younger, and he was vaguely anti-Israel or pro-Palestine. He probably had some principles as a kid in uni, but now he's not. He listens to the ear of like I said, McSweeney. He's also pretty clueless. He's not much of a political operator, so he doesn't know any better.
Well, I don't think. I honestly don't
that's
think
the same in power.
Yeah. I don't think he was supposed to be prime minister. I think the plan was that he was going to be a kind of Kinnock figure, change the party into something vaguely centristy, centre-right, and then Tony Blair would come along, either Streeting or whoever, to be the actual prime minister. But the Tories were so disastrous that the kind of schedule was way ahead of where they thought it was going to be, and so they're sort of stuck with this very unpopular carpet salesman.
Well, I mean, you can see it in their own language when the Labour right figures say, well, after the 2019 election, we could not believe we could turn it around, and it's gobsmacking that we've won an election. And that's kind of telling, because they're saying, yeah, we didn't expect to turn this around. We didn't instill Keir Starmer because we thought he's a particularly good leader and he has the right policies and he has the right instincts to turn the chances for Labour around. They were expecting for Starmer to lose. And you're absolutely right. Starmer was there to completely hollow out the party for anything vaguely left-wing, anything vaguely Corbynite. And then the future of Starmer doesn't really matter whether he were to win in 10 years or be someone else. He was obviously that bridge to change the party. But obviously they didn't expect the Conservatives to collapse so much. Yeah. And that's where we are now.
Yeah, and I think there's very little chance he fights a second general election now. I think he's hold below the waterline. He's unpopular. And they've shown how ruthless they'll be.
Astonishingly unpopular. The decisions he's made, the things he's done, I'm gobsmacked. I didn't expect Starmer to be politically smart, make some good decisions, but I also didn't think he would be so risky
he's
in
burned
the bad
all
things
of his...
he's done. Not the good things, but the bad things.
Yeah, look, he's decided to burn all of his political capital on some of the dumbest stuff that will make no difference. Yeah. He's decided to die on the hill of, I want to freeze Granny. What? Who thinks that's a good thing? No, literally nobody thinks that's a good policy, and yet he's made himself phenomenally unpopular. And of course, he's a corrupt piece of shit and always has been, and that's been exposed now. That's nice. Bit late now, lads. I was ranting before we got going about how the journalist class in this country are so terrible. They didn't do any of this before the election when it actually mattered, when we could make a value judgment on this person's character. No, now he's Prime Minister. Now we'll expose the things that he's done. Thanks. Now that there's nothing we can do about it. Absolutely worse than useless.
The media's a good segue into the plug because, look, no one called out Starmer and Labour and their big billionaire backers. I mean, I know the £4 million from Quadrature that came from the Cayman Islands. That wasn't known by journalists because of the timing of it, which is obviously done on purpose, so it wasn't revealed before the election. But that wasn't the only donation we had. Labour generated the most amount of donations from big time people. We had John Cordwell from Phones for You. He's one that always sticks in my mind. I think it was him who said that Labour are now the capitalist or venture capitalist party, commercial capitalist. They're the commercial capitalist party that I enjoy. No one said anything then. No one said, oh, look, all these former Tory donors, even Liz Truss supporters went to the Labour Party. No journalistic integrity, but obviously after he's in, people in the media want to look like they're doing their job. And suddenly they start talking about Wahid Ali and his donations. But even still, when they call him out for it, they're not even talking about bribery or what it means. They just say, well, it's indulgent. He's indulging himself in clothes. The biggest criticism you get, it's a good line, which is, look, he's scrapping the winter fuel payments whilst also taking freebies. It's a good hypocritical line to take, but that's not even deep enough. The truth is, people give money to political parties. People gave money to Keir Starmer because they want a return on investment.
Yep.
I think we've ranted on Keir Starmer for quite a while there, and we've gone a bit over, but that is all we have time for. I want to thank everyone who tuned in, everyone who commented. I really appreciate it. And of course, I want to thank Kevin Logan for once again being a great guest, friend of the show. He's very insightful. If you don't follow him, you must. He's on YouTube under the name @Ploppy111. Don't ask me, I don't know. Maybe we'll ask Kevin why you're under Ploppy111.
It's similar to Wee Jock Poo Pong McPlop. It's a Blackadder reference. I'm a very sensible adult.
Indeed you are. But you can also follow him on Twitch at KF Logan 1875. No, that's not when he was born. Remember, if you enjoyed this live show, if you enjoyed this live show, you can support Turn Left by hitting that subscribe button, hit that like button. We've got 184 concurrent viewers over Twitter and YouTube. Currently 61 people watching, so I want all of you to hit that like button. It helps the algorithm, it pushes us out. And if you like our work and you want us to become full-time, then you can support us by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. My name's Curtis Daly. Thank you, and see you next time.
Support independent media. Support social
Mein
justice
Führer!
that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.
Fucking hell. Oh, I'm a knob. I'm such a knob. Oh, I was muted, don't worry. I was. Go and follow the Turn Left Media, everyone. Oh, don't worry. When you say what the I was just like it's a part of the joke. It's just a bit of a silly joke. I'm joking on the idea that that he's been referred to as like as a Nazi or whatever. A lot of shit. It was on the stream. No, it fucking wasn't, Mr. Satnav. Shut up. I can literally see that I'm muted. Now I'm not muted.
Hello.
Hello.
How you going?
I'm sweaty. How are you?
Sweaty.
I am.
Nice little Starmer rant at the end there. I always enjoy that.
Yeah. Always good. Yeah, fuck him.
Even though it was a correction, how professional did that? You looked really professional. It was like, actually, my producers just sent through a correction.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting more and more pro, man.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
This just in. Oh, you're going to love it now, Lewis. On our new software, there is a function where you can sort of walkie-talkie people from backstage. So you can actually be in my ear and say something. So if I say something wrong, you're like, actually, I actually can actually touch my ear and go, a producer is screaming something in my ear, actually. We can actually do that for real, rather than pretending.
But yeah, like, this is why I ended up... I've consumed so much Israeli media this week. But yeah, I saw that story. It's like a weird, twisted irony that the only person to die in that entire attack was a Palestinian in the West Bank.
Fucking horrendous, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, crazy. Did you see the thing? Obviously, I didn't expect you to say anything. I just put
I
it in
did
there
see
just in case
it.
you
I
wanted
did
to
see
mention
it. I was going to
You've come
mention it.
across
I
it
don't
before,
think I
right?
got around to it. What? Sorry?
Have you come across the Hannibal Directive before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just making sure.
Well, you've written, haven't you? So Haaretz revealed the Hannibal Operation Order, which directs the use of force to prevent soldiers being taken into captivity, was employed at 3 army facilities infiltrated by Hamas, potentially endangering civilians as well, and that was on the October 7th. So basically, Israel killed their own soldiers as well. So I think because that's when I said about the 700 number, wasn't it? And you brought that up. So they killed civilians and soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah, the only one that Haaretz could confirm, like they knew that they used the directive in 3 different locations, and the only one that they know where civilians died was this kibbutz where a guy ordered like the bombing of like a building which had like 14 Palestinians in it and killed 13 of them. Sorry, not Palestinians, Israelis in it, and killed 13 of them. That's the only one that Haaretz can confirm that definitely happened. They can't confirm the rest. That's
Yeah.
why they couldn't report on it. But it's obviously more than that. Like,
Oh,
I'm not one of
fuck
these
yeah.
people who's just like, Israel killed hundreds of their own people or anything like that. But we'll just never know until there's a proper investigation. But will there be a proper investigation?
I don't
Did you
think
listen
there
to my
will
voice
because they're
earlier?
going to.
Well, no,
They
Israel
won't have
investigated
access to that
themselves and
information.
found out they were innocent. It's fine.
But I put a voice message in one of the groups earlier. I was reading the Jerusalem Post because I like to read as much Israeli media as I can. And Netanyahu's government is changing a law, or trying to, so that the committee that would normally investigate October 7th and under those circumstances, instead of the Supreme Court justice picking the people who investigate it, they're changing it so Benjamin Netanyahu gets to pick,
Oh.
and his coalition government get to
Oh.
pick.
Why is
Who
that not already?
investigates
Why
it?
have they not already investigated it?
Because Benjamin Netanyahu has said there's not going to be an investigation until the war is over. But how convenient that
That is
he's
very
keeping himself-
convenient.
he's keeping himself in power because he wants to change the judiciary to, potentially influence his trial that he's on for corruption. And there's not going to be an investigation which could damage him until after the war's ended. But the war's not going to end because the war is going to continue because he's crazy, and so is his far right Israeli cabinet.
Fair.
Fucking scumbag, eh? Fucking hate him.
Mad.
Honestly, hate him. Like, we were talking about the death penalty, and I was like, that's too kind for him. I actually think it's too kind. Because it's over and done.
But let's make sure we don't lower ourselves to their standards.
Nah, fuck that. When it comes to BB, you can get it. I don't support the death penalty, but I would support the death penalty for genocidal dictators. So,
Mm. Okay, but I mean, I will just say, people have
In
gone to
Minecraft?
jail for saying things not massively stronger than what you just said. So just be careful. Is what
in
I would say.
Minecraft.
Well, no, see, I don't think the Minecraft thing works in a courtroom. I think the lawyers can see through it.
Hmm.
I know
I
it's a
would
very
also-
well crafted piece of like subterfuge, but I think they can decode it. Yeah.
But I am going to push back because, Curtis, you need to think about this, right? So Israel's excuse for doing what they do is because what their circumstances are exceptional, so that's why they're allowed to do what they do. So if you genuinely don't believe in the death sentence, if you're making an exception for specific circumstances, you are potentially lowering yourself to a certain group of people's standards, and we don't want that in the world, do we? We don't want that.
We don't want that, no.
Fair
I'm
enough.
always going to push back.
Fucking centrist.
But anyway, that was a great show.
Yeah, that was
that's
awesome.
not centrism. That's not
I'm joking,
centrism.
I'm joking.
That's pure leftism. Thank you. Anyway, that was a great show. That was funny. Kevin, you're fucking hilarious. Honestly,
Thank
I
you.
can't stop laughing watching you.
Much love.
Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, really good show. Comments were great. Lots of engagement.
I like the one when they complimented my jacket.
Fucking sycophants, man. Sycophants. Dick riders everywhere.
Like, it's giving NSYNC, but you know.
Yeah, look, it's from the 90s,
NSYNC.
yeah.
Oh, I used to quite like NSYNC when I was younger.
How was
that your
Blackadder
inspiration.
before your fucking time then? You shut up. Jesus, you old prick.
When Blackadder, what year? What decade was Blackadder?
80s, 90s, some shit like that, I don't know.
If it was 80s, it was
end-
before my time.
It ended before we were born, Kevin. I do apologise.
Well, it might be
I'm
before you were
93.
born, but I think it was still
Yeah, we're
going when
both
I was
93.
born. Yeah. Well, I'm 6 years older than you both.
You don't
you
look a
watched it
day
before?
over 31, which is my age.
Fuck. No, chat, I look awful. But thank you. You're wrong, but thank you. Okay.
I think your own chat is too mean to you.
But I'm far meaner to myself than my chat could ever possibly be. Yes. I'll shoot off then, lads. And yeah. We'll meet up again some other time, I guess.
Cool.
you so
Thank you
much.
so much. I'm gonna go make some
Great
clips.
Yeah, hook me into them and
we'll see
I'll
you
repost them and all that shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coolio.
Take care, everyone.
Kevin.
Bye.
Who is this delightful young person? This is Gage. Hello, Gage. And now it's Dana. I don't know who these fucking people are. Anyway. Right, so I was going to watch the VeeP debate, but I've decided that's boring as fuck. So do you want to watch the Mehdi Hassan versus Elon Levy debate instead? Because that one looked a lot spicier. So I don't know why I didn't just put that one in the fucking title. That would have worked a lot easier, wouldn't it? Should we do that one instead? What do you reckon? Chatterinos. By the way, I put an emote wall on the thing, right? If all of you could spam a few emotes just to see if any of them come up, because someone did one of No Justice's emotes and it did pop on the screen. So clearly the emote wall does work, sort of, a little bit, I think. And I wanted to see if it's just her emotes or something. You've seen it 6 times. Well, you can watch it for a 7th time, or you can fuck off. One of the two. One of them did definitely pop up earlier. So there's some connection that's made it work earlier, but I don't know what that is particularly. No, it's not working, is it? Why is it doing this shite for? No, there we go. Look, that one worked. See? There's my big fucking stupid face flying across the screen. It's ridiculous. Why did that one work but none of the others worked? I don't get out. Why is it being fucking weird for? Yeah, why did that one work and the other ones haven't worked? And why did it work once when you did it a million times? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, we're watching this fucking shite. Yeah, look, there we go. There was one again.
Welcome to Open to Debate. I'm John Donvan, and we are gathered for something remarkable here. A meeting between two men who disagree fiercely across an issue that has fiercely divided so many of us within families and on college campuses. And for that alone...
What kind of fucking name is that? America? I will accept someone called Mr. Donovan. Right? I will not accept someone called Mr. Donvan. What the fuck is that? That's a typo. This man's surname is a fucking typo. Okay? Mad. Anyway. Oh yeah, talking of weird shite. I love this, right? You know I've been very mean to the Dutch over the last, well, forever. The Dutch language is fun. So this is some crap. Someone literally pooped on a train chair. See, that one worked. Why did that one random one work? This is fucking with my brain. Why is it doing this to me? Oh. Anyway, and the Dutch language, I'll just read it out as I would pronounce this. Oh nee, iemand poepenschaten op de koekstoel. Poepenschaten op de koekstoel. Poepenschaten op de koekstoel. Poepenschaten op de koekstoel. Dutch is simultaneously the best and worst language ever. It's not Dutch. What is it then? What language is this? I demand to know what Poepenschaten is. Are you German? Flemish? Walloon? Luxembourgish? Is that a thing? Aren't they just failed French? What is it then? So someone tell me now what this fucking means. Because if you go onto the thing, it says, hang on, translate from Dutch is what comes up, right? Everyone's saying it's Dutch. So look, why Dutch people? Explain yourself. Oh, do I type in poop and sharten? Oh, I'm Google searching poop and sharten. What is this? See, they're saying it's Dutch. It's Dutch, actually. You've never heard of Dutch chocolate? What? Is it not real then? Is it just a made up thing? Is it not German? Can a German speaker tell me, at least? Poop and Sharton and cook style is not Dutch. Okay, if you say it's not Dutch, it's not Dutch. Maybe it's German or some shit. Where's Vogel? With the one time we needed a German speaker. Vogel, where are you, you Austrian bastard? Probably being perverted, knowing you. God bless you. Anyway.
For their courage.
Anyway, John Donvan is not a real name.
In coming to the same stage, let us congratulate them at the outset, because we know how rare it is in our currently hyper-polarized culture for opposing viewpoints to be heard, spoken aloud, and in competition with each other under the same roof. But that is the essence of debate, and that is the value that we promote at Open to Debate. And so it is an honor to be here at New York's venerable Adler Hall, a crown jewel of the New York Society for Ethical Culture, where we cannot and we will not forget how the war in Gaza is steeped in pain and outrage and fear and anger.
Thank you, Carl. I am well. Thank you for that. Don't forget, everybody. Thank you for the $2. If you were feeling generous. Oh, so it's just made up Dutch. It's fake Dutch. It's fudge. What we have here is fudge. It's very much a fudge. A fudge situation. That's funny. We have a fudge schmingus. What the fuck am I saying? If you want to give me money, you can, in the form of bits and subs on Twitch. Or you can do super chats or fucking memberships on YouTube. These are things you can do. Why the fuck you would want to after what has just transpired on this channel, I do not know. But the first bit was good. The first hour when the other people were running it, fucking brilliant.
It's why this debate matters. And it's why it is natural to take sides, even necessary to take sides. But listening to the other side, which these debaters will be called to do with one another. And
could it be Low German? All German is Low German. There's no such thing as non-Low German, please.
Which I hope you will do as members of the
needless xenophobia
audience just by being here. That may be a first step, at least in understanding how and why and exactly why we disagree. The question we have framed for this purpose and that we will hear debated tonight is this: were Israel's actions in the war in Gaza justified?
No.
Let's meet our debaters. Answering yes to the question, were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified, I want to welcome Ilan Levy.
Oh, this piece of shit. Awesome. Who, by the way, the reason I wanted to watch this is because he's been so butthurt on Twitter about this in the last few days. I had to watch it.
Thank you. Ilan, you are the, if you can stay with me here, you're the former spokesperson for Israel in the October 7th war, co-founder of the Israeli...
And was kicked out of Britain, I believe. Or was kicked out of the embassy because of his propaganda or something like that, wasn't it? I don't think he was kicked out of Britain, because as far as I'm aware, he is British. But...
Citizen Spokesperson's Office, host of the State of a Nation podcast. Welcome to Open to Debate. And here to argue no...
Thank you for gifting a membership, Carl. Much love to you, mate.
To the question, were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified, I want to welcome Mehdi Hassan.
Oh, that audience is not balanced. This is not your typical question time audience, people. Okay, this is fucking raucous, like a rock star.
Many
You have sent me a list of Dutch swear words, and I appreciate that enormously. Stopfeur, literally sidewalk whore, can be used to insult a woman. Always good in case I want to be sexist towards a Dutch person. Teeth, which is just the word, that's just cat speak for teeth, means bitch, like in English. Tut is a common mild insult aimed at women. Zach is a word for scrotum, which is very unfortunate because my nephew is called Zach. That is, I will advise him not to go to the Netherlands anytime soon, especially given that he is 8 years old. But yeah, there you go. Ulsuken, literally owlet, is a word for a naively dumb person. Well, there you go. These are all things. Pot can be a homosexual woman. Poot is an animal leg or foot. Poop is poop. Pissig means pissy, pissed off, angry. Okay, well, you know what? I'll bookmark that, and I'll get back to it later.
You are founder, editor-in-chief, and CEO of Zeteo, host of Al Jazeera's Head to Head, an award-winning journalist. Welcome to Open to Debate.
Thank you for having me.
And gentlemen, thanks each of you for being here tonight. Let's start it with a handshake, and then we can begin the debate.
Glad to take this offline.
Thank you.
That's a slightly odd thing to say. Was he trying to like intimidate him there or something? Glad to take this offline. Okay, mate. Calm yourself.
So let's get to our opening statements. We want each of you to take a few minutes to explain why you're answering yes or no to our question: were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified? And when I say were, I just want to be clear, we chose that word to talk about Israel's immediate actions after what happened on October 7th up through today. It's everything. It's not this moment, it's not that moment, it's the course of things. Ilan, you are up first. Your answer to the question is yes. The floor is yours. Please tell us why.
On October 7th, Hamas perpetrated an act of genocide against the people of Israel. Its death squads invaded with a clear mission: to massacre as many people as they could, as sadistically as they could, and to take survivors
Are we going to get titty football again? I hope not.
as hostages. Hamas had a strategy to lure Israel into an urban war.
Also, by the way, interesting that he's describing that much more minor case of death as genocide, but I'm going to guess the year-long fucking bombing of Gaza will not be described as a genocide by him. Intriguing.
And generate enough suffering that the world would pressure Israel to leave Hamas alone to do it
Hamas.
again and again. Hamas slaughtered.
Okay. Thank you, Kieran Saunders with 100 bits, and thank you, Thinking Cybercat with 100 bits. And thank you, Idiosyncrasy with another 1 bit. You've done 1 bit like 10 times now. I mean, it's fine, by all means. It's fine. But, like, you could have just done that 10 bits once or something, you know? Anyway, doesn't matter. We're on a hype train. If we get to level 2 of the hype train, I will finger this man's brain, because it is fucking dead. It is very dead. Apparently, warning over how he describes October the 7th. Or 6th, I should say. Why have you put 6th? Do you mean 6th? I don't know.
slaughtered 1,200 people on that day at a music festival and in their beds. They cremated little children alive.
No, they didn't. That's a lie. You just repeated a lie that was proven to be a lie a year ago.
They perpetrated barbaric acts of sexual violence. They beheaded, tortured, and mutilated their victims, alive and dead, and they did it with glee. And then they took over 250 hostages, including little children, paraded them through the streets of Gaza to jeering crowds, hid them in tunnels and homes where they are being starved and tortured and raped and executed.
That's twice he's mentioned raped now. I do hope he has the same sort of opprobrium to pour on the Israeli government for its actions about its own forces raping people. I suspect he won't.
It was the deadliest terror attack in world history after 9/11.
Oh! Whoa! Whoa! Glad he mentioned that last little bit there. It's the biggest, most humongous terrorist attack ever, except that other one, which was vastly bigger, actually. Yeah. Interesting framing. Oh, I'll turn the text-to-speech back on then. I only turned it off because I was watching a fucking thing. Jeebus.
The bloodiest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and the opening shot of the Iranian regime's regional war against Israel on 7 fronts. At this point, Israel faced a choice, as Hamas immediately threatened to do it again and again until Israel was destroyed. To do nothing, or to do something. Both would have...
You're a fucking idiot. You got soup for brains.
Get the fuck, Nick, I'm not blaming all these mutants.
Quite so. You join us at a fantastic moment. You've joined me at a wonderful moment where I'm explaining, or trying to get my head around, why this Israeli propagandist hack piece of shit is trying to pretend like Israel had to do something or it had to do nothing. And as if that something has to be the slaughter of all of the Palestinians, apparently.
Ladies and gentlemen,
there you go. Thank you, Zakap. Much love. Everyone go and follow Zakap. We're also still on the hype train, people. If you wanted to contribute in form of bits and subs, you can do so. What was that clip from? That clip is from the Scottish COD players, and they're talking about being in some sort of Call of Duty lobby or something. I don't fucking know, but it's funny, so fuck it.
Have consequences. Doing nothing meant letting Hamas get away with October 7th, leave it free to do it again and again, only this time with thousands of dangerous terrorists released from jail and with its popularity skyrocketing. That's not an option. Doing something meant targeting Hamas's terrorists in accordance with international law.
Which you didn't do.
In order to dismantle their ability to wage war,
which you haven't
and
done,
live out that threat to do it again and again. That was the choice that Israel faced after October 7th. Now, after October 7th, that campaign to bring Hamas down and bring the hostages home was the only moral response. Hamas exists for the sake of war, and for the sake of peace, it must go.
No, Likud exists for the purpose of war.
Let me explain Israel's strategy. Israel's strategy is to get civilians out of harm's way so that it
clearly not
can target Hamas's terrorist infrastructure under their feet. Hamas's strategy is to keep civilians in harm's way so that it can use them to shield their military infrastructure. Israel left
I wonder if he's got the same policy now that Israel's the one being bombed.
Gaza in 2005 and never wanted to go back, but Hamas seized power 2 years later, started firing rockets at our cities, and rigged Gaza's urban landscape for war. They dug a network of military tunnels 1.5 times longer than New York subway under homes and schools and hospitals. They booby-trapped tens of thousands of buildings. They started firing rockets at our homes and our towns from inside their schools and their hospitals. In response, Israel's actions are to target Hamas's terrorists and to take unprecedented efforts to keep their civilians safe from their own leader's sick strategy to sacrifice them on the altar of jihad. That's why it keeps repeatedly urging them to get out of harm's way from Hamas strongholds.
Right, but then when it does move to a new place, they then bomb that place as well. Almost like they're literally playing whack-a-mole with Palestinian civilians and bombs.
And flooding the area with over 1 million tons of aid, because it keeps saying this is a war against Hamas, not the people of Gaza. Now, the suffering of my neighbors in Gaza is horrific. I blame their psychopath leaders for launching this war, fighting it inside civilian areas, and refusing to release the hostages and surrender. Now, tonight's debate is about whether Israel's actions in the war in Gaza are justified, in a context in which I hope we...
I think virtually every word he said so far has been total bullshit, which is fun.
We can all agree none of the enemy's actions are justified, because we are fighting a jihadist army that has as much respect for humanity and law as Mehdi Hassan has for the truth. Mehdi may say, I condemn Hamas's
Lol.
I want people to keep in mind how graphic and descriptive that Elon is compared to Hassan during this debate.
Well, a point taken. Thank you, Kieran. Much love. Yes, and the talkie is back on now, so if you wanted to do that, you can.
acts on October 7th, but he will not condemn its strategy because he is part of its strategy. Hamas
Everyone I don't like is Hamas.
is counting on its defense attorney to shield it from the consequences of the war that it started and deflect blame onto Israel so it
The war it started. The war it started. Fuck me, this guy's he's on one.
can do October 7th again, maybe because they share a goal that Israel shouldn't exist. Mehdi Hassan will say tonight that October 7th does not justify Israel's actions in this horrible war. My question then is this. What
Ilan,
does
I'm sorry,
October 7th
your time is
justify?
up.
What does October 7th?
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you. Mehdi? Ilan, in already calling your opponent a liar, you have already crossed one of the lines of the culture that we try to establish here. I wish you hadn't.
I don't mind. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
How they cut his mic? Bitch.
You don't need to do that to make your case. Please. Mehdi Hassan, you are answering no in answer to the question, were Israel's actions in the Gaza war justified?
All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, the question, were they justified? Were the actions justified?
And it would be great if you didn't feel the need to respond to the personal attack, because it'll waste
We'll
time.
decide when we get there, John. Were they justified? No, obviously not. Of course not. October the 7th, I think we can all agree, was a crime, a war crime. Right, we can all agree on that. And taking hostages is a war crime. And those hostages should be released. But to destroy an entire place, an entire people in response is never justified. Never justified. How are we still I don't understand how we're debating this more than 40,000 deaths later. I don't understand how we're still debating this sitting in the comfort of New York, 7,000 miles away from a place that the UN Secretary General has called hell on earth. Justified?
Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, they banned Antonio Guterres from Israel for saying things that they didn't like, which definitely screams liberal democracy to me. That's definitely the way a liberal democracy should act, apparently.
Justified? Was Israel justified in carrying out one of the most intense civilian punishment campaigns in history, according to Dr. Robert Pape at the University of Chicago, dropping 500-pound bombs, 1,000-pound bombs, 2,000-pound bombs on schools, hospitals, universities, bookstores, libraries, mosques, churches, refugee camps, apartment buildings, cemeteries, destroying a higher percentage of buildings in northern Gaza than the Allies destroyed in Dresden during World War II, reducing Gaza to 42 million tons of rubble while they got people out of the way? How is that justified? Dropping a bomb, for example, on a 6-story apartment building in central Gaza last October, killing more than 100 people inside, including more than 50 children, with no Hamas target in sight, according to Human Rights Watch, with no explanation offered by the Israeli military. Even till today, was that justified, Elon? Was Israel justified in telling people to go to safe zones and then bombing them and killing them in those safe zones? According to NBC, there were 7 deadly airstrikes between January and April in areas that the Israeli military had specifically designated as safe zones, killing Palestinian civilians like Sabrine Sakani, who was 30 weeks pregnant at the time. She was killed in a safe zone in April. Her little baby, newborn baby, died less than a week later. Was that justified too, Elon? Was Israel justified in killing a record number of kids in Gaza, 16,000 children, turning Gaza into what the UN has called a graveyard for children, according to Save the Children, killing more kids in the first 3 weeks that were killed globally in each of the past 4 years, killing little kids like 6-year-old Hind Rajab and her 15-year-old sister Leanne, firing 335 bullets into the car they were in. 335 bullets. And then killing the 2 paramedics who went to try and rescue them. Was that justified too, Elon? Was Israel justified in killing a record number of aid workers in Gaza? Right? A record number. Targeting again and again, systematically, car by car, according to Chef Jose Andres. A specifically, explicitly marked World Central Kitchen aid convoy killing 7 aid workers in the process. Was that justified? Was Israel justified in starving the people of Gaza, using food and water as a weapon of war, to quote both the EU and Oxfam? Was Israel justified in blocking aid trucks from going into Gaza simply because they carry things like crutches, nail clippers, and even chocolate croissants, according to the
my favourite streamer told me that the sugar can be made into bombs, and that's definitely real. And totally not a thing he read and just fucking copied, like Anchorman the cunt.
Washington Post. Was Israel justified in raping, sodomizing Palestinian detainees who were charged with no crimes whatsoever? Putting hot rods up their rectums. Amputating their limbs, according to CNN and the New York Times. Was that rape and torture justified, Elon? Israel, according to the ICC chief prosecutor, who put out a statement calling for the arrest of Elon's former boss, Benjamin Netanyahu, said that Israel may have military goals, legitimate goals, but the way they're carried out, killing innocent people, starving people, is criminal, he said. Criminal, think about that. Elon Levy is a former spokesperson for a man who the ICC chief prosecutor wants arrested for war crimes. Elon himself has produced a number of lies, sorry John, in service of those war crimes. He has a bunch of tweets still up tonight which say that babies were beheaded on October the 7th, babies were baked in ovens, babies were ripped from their mothers' wombs. October 7th was bad enough, but Elon...
Nothing will beat Rabbi Shmuley's titty football. That honestly sticks in my mind. The fact that he claimed that shit. Fucking wild. For those that don't know, Rabbi Shmuley is a particularly fucking noxious piece of shite Israeli propagandist guy, who claimed that Hamas would cut off women's tits and were playing football with them. Because that's a thing that can happen, definitely.
Had to exaggerate it for atrocity purposes. Those tweets are still up. Why would you trust anything this man says to you tonight? Look, he's here. He's here to gaslight you, to defend the indefensible, to excuse the inexcusable, to justify the unjustifiable, but you don't need to. Tonight you can choose to be on the side not of cruelty, not of criminality, but on the side of the innocent people of Gaza who are being killed as we speak tonight, as we speak, by Elon's former colleagues in the Israeli military on the orders of Elon's former...
Former. I like this. Former. Yeah, you know you're an unemployed little bitch. You know you try to deep throat the boot and you still can't get fucking paid, motherfucker.
Bosses in the Israeli government. So yes, I choose to oppose this horrific and homicidal motion. Thank you.
Ooh. Honestly, he cooked. He didn't even bring a pan with him and he fucking cooked.
So we're gonna have a discussion with that's a little bit looser in format. But the first thing I want to say to each of you is, you know, this mutual urination contest is.
Who the fuck is this guy? Does he know this is the internet? Why is he trying to moderate? Get out of the way.
It's not is not helping us understand the principles involved. All right, you think he tells untruths, you think he tells untruths. You don't need to keep hitting that point, I hope, to make your argument. And again, it's not what we're about. Elon, I heard you in your opening statement say that the only moral response was for Israel to try to take Hamas down and to get the hostages home. I heard your opponent say that the manner in which it's happening is just enormous overreach with enormous consequences for an enormous number of people that he would certainly say, and I think a number of others would agree, are innocent people, not all of them, but some of them, and that represents an unjustifiable response. What we're talking about, it seems like, is proportionality. And I want you to address the issue of proportionality.
Yeah, like, this kind of debate format works if both sides are legitimate and genuine. If they're good faith interlocutors, then yeah, then calling the other person a liar is out of order and doesn't help. But if someone just does nothing but lie, are you supposed to just pretend like they're not lying and take those lies at face value? Fuck that. No. He's a bullshitter. He should be called for being a bullshitter. These highfalutin ideas of fucking, debate in the free marketplace of ideas works if everyone's fucking playing by the rules. And he isn't. He's not saying things that he believes to be true. He is lying for political ends and nothing else. And I think it's only right that you point that out.
This has been calculated in a number of ways. People have said that, as you said, it was the worst terrorist attack since September 11th, 2001. But others would say that the number of people killed on both sides is wildly out of balance and therefore disproportionate. There's an issue to be discussed here. There's a principle to be discussed.
Well, literally, as someone pointed out, that the civilian to military casualties on October the 7th were significantly better than Israel's slaughter of innocent people, with the occasional Hamas thrown in.
It's discussed here, and that's proportionality. And what, in your view, justifies the proportionality that Israel has stepped up to in its response? And again, because I want things to move back and forth, I'll probably jump in on you after about 90 seconds, just so you have a sense.
Israel's response is proportionate to the threat that we face, which is the threat of annihilation. After perpetrating the savage atrocities of October 7th, the first thing Hamas did was deny that it did them. The second thing that it did was to threaten to do it again and again until Israel is destroyed. That is what is at stake. If this war ends with Hamas free, emboldened, and empowered to perpetrate more October 7th massacres, thinking that the world will keep saving it from the wars that it started. Now, proportionality is a term in international law. It doesn't mean that if they kill 1,000 people, you kill 1,000 people and call it quits. It means that for each strike, the anticipated collateral damage, the damage to civilians, cannot be excessive to the anticipated military goal.
And even under that metric, you're still vastly excessive.
And your argument is that that has been the principle Israel has observed.
Every military expert who has observed Israel's military efforts, including just recently in the Times, the Deputy Supreme Commander of NATO, has said that
well, if the leader of NATO says it, then it must be completely awesome and all above board. Now I'm convinced.
Israel is fighting in the most complicated urban battlefield that the world has ever seen, and he's satisfied that its rules of engagement and standard procedures are at least as rigorous as the UK and other Western allies.
Yeah, which is bad, because we know from the way in which they operated in Afghanistan and Iraq that they also don't follow international law.
That's the former Deputy Supreme Commander of NATO.
Mehdi.
So I actually want to agree. I want to agree with something Elon said. Proportionality is a difficult subject, and we shouldn't talk about this in abstract. X number here, Y number there. Let's talk specifics. The problem with a lot of spokespersons of Israel, they want to talk in abstract. I want to talk in specifics. So if we talk about proportionality, we talk about discrimination, we talk about war crimes. Last October, shortly after October 7th, Israeli forces struck a 3-story residential building in Gaza City. They killed 15 members of the Al-Dos family, 7 children. According to Amnesty International, the survivors say no warnings. Elon told us there were warnings. No warnings were given to evacuate. Amnesty found no evidence of any military targets in the area, and Israel...
But Amnesty are Hamas. I know he'll say it, and I promise you I haven't pre-watched. I just know he's going to say it. Because, of course he's going to fucking say it. Apologies, I'm just turning the light thing off. Yeah.
To this day, has offered no explanation for that strike. So, for the dead Al-Dos family members, Elon, can you tell us why they were killed?
Mr. Hassan, the IDF does not owe you immediate answers, and the fact that Amnesty...
You fucking bitch.
speaks... The fact that Amnesty speaks to local witnesses intimidated by Hamas does not mean that there was not a military target.
But was there? Because Israel has never said there was a military target.
Hamas booby-trapped 40% of Gaza's buildings.
40% of Gaza's... Where did they get all of that stuff from? They booby-trapped 40%. 40%. Shut the fuck up. Nobody believes you. Not a single
escalation after escalation
fucking person believes the things you are saying, you lying cunt. Shut up.
Dug tunnels underneath homes and schools.
We're back to generalities, Elon.
No, not
Why did
generalities.
you kill 15 members of the Al-Dos family?
I do not know, and I do not need to explain every single strike.
You do. That's what you're here today.
Mehdi,
no,
hold
Mr.
it.
Hassan. Because in this war, Israel is seeking to neutralize the threat of a terrorist army that has a deliberate strategy.
I'm going to
of
have to get the mic cut
sacrificing
switched,
innocent
please.
civilians.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Hamas has a deliberate strategy of sacrificing its innocent civilians, and this is a strategy that you are enabling by always deflecting blame onto Israel instead of considering the real...
Just because you're the ones bombing them. Yeah, crazy, I know. You're blaming the people that are murdering the other people. Really? You're not blaming the victims? That's crazy talk.
Question of why Hamas built its military assets into civilian areas.
Why did Mossad do that then in Tel Aviv? Are they using the natives of Tel Aviv? Are they using those people as human shields, my man? Kind of seems like they might be using them as human shields. Just a thought. Thank you, James Holmes, for gifting a sub. Or a membership, I should say. Much love to you.
International law, Israel is obligated to give precaution where those feasible precautions are possible.
Okay,
and it has done that by
let Mehdi come in, please.
I need to say 2 things. To be clear. To be clear.
Ladies and gentlemen, victory is ours.
15 people were killed, 7 children. You were spokesperson for the Israeli government at the time. Israel has never given an explanation. When you say I do not need to explain myself, you literally do. You were the spokesperson for the government that committed a war crime, and you came to a debate tonight to defend war crimes. So you literally do. Number 2...
Absolute logic burn. Love it.
Number 2, you'll notice, John, how Elon quickly went to abstract generalities. Let's talk specifics. Let's talk about tunnels. I think it's abhorrent to hide tunnels under civilian targets. I wish...
When will Zionists understand that the more you genocide the Palestinians, the more people are sympathetic to Hamas, Fatah and the PFLP, so on and so forth. Also, the IDF headquarters is in downtown Tel Aviv. Sounds like using human shields.
True and true. Yes, and thank you for the bitty bits. Yeah, I don't think Israel cares much, unfortunately, Elliot, because it doesn't rely so much on international opinion, only that the political establishments of those countries are in lockstep. And we've seen that. In Britain, very few people support what Israel is currently doing, and yet the government are lockstep behind Israel. Not that many people in America support what Israel is currently doing, and yet Joe Biden is lockstep with Israel. It's a big club, and we're not welcoming it.
They didn't do that. But when Israel shoots children in the head, 3 American doctors went to Gaza. Dr. Feyyaz Sidwa, Dr. Irfan Galaria, and a Jewish American doctor called Dr. Mark Perlmutter. All of them came back at separate times, said children were brought into hospitals we were in with gunshot to the head, sniper shots. Perfect. Exact targets. There is no tunnel that justifies shooting toddlers in the head. Israeli snipers. Shooting toddlers. Well, you can tell us why. You can defend that.
Mehdi, forgive me for going abstract, but
Please.
I do want to go to some principles here. So you are listing a number of specific
Yes.
incidents that you feel cumulatively add up to a very, very much an overreaction.
War crimes, John, not an overreaction. War crimes.
All right, you call them war crimes. In not so much in the abstract, but what would have been an appropriate response to what happened that would not cross the line to proportionality?
It's a good question. It's a great question. So I'll answer that in 2 ways. One is, I'm not someone who has ever, and you can look at my record on this, whether it's the UK, the US, both of my countries, I'm American, British. I've criticized targeted assassinations even by the US and the UK. I'm the loser, and people in New York, there's going to be an unpopular statement, who says that people like bin Laden should be tried, not assassinated. That's who I'm, a stinking liberal. But given we live in a world where America, Britain, Israel, multiple countries, India is now accused of targeting its enemies, killing its enemies, you could have tried to take out the leaders of the group without wiping out the entire place. I find it interesting that Israel, hold on. I find it interesting that Israel was able to pinpoint kill Ismail Haniyeh in a house in a foreign country. But when it comes to Gaza, when it comes to the Gaza Strip, they had to wipe out the whole place. They had to reduce it to 42 million tons of rubble. And one final point, I just got on factual points. Elon, they're not your neighbors, they're people you occupy, just to be clear.
Oh, honestly, Mehdi, you can take me, mate. You can take me fucking roughly from behind. Let's go.
So, I'm hoping you'll let point number 2 slide, and please take on point number 1. What Mehdi's saying, that there would have been a self-defense response that he feels might have been more appropriate, that he also feels would have been within the capability of the Israeli military. What's your response to that?
Notice the general pattern of argumentation we're seeing here. Gosh, October 7th was terrible. Hamas shouldn't have done that. Gosh, Hamas built tunnels under schools and hospitals. It shouldn't have done that. The question is what Israel may legitimately do once
No,
Hamas
that's not the question.
Yeah, this is. I'm watching it on YouTube. Yeah, hang on 1 second. Mad Cat. Hang on.
And I asked you.
No, but I'm explaining.
It's what you did.
And his response.
It's what you did.
And Mr. Hassan's response is, well, if Israel could take
By the way, everyone go and follow Mad Cat Scotty, who is starting to stream, I believe.
out a terrorist leader thousands of miles away who wasn't expecting that he could be targeted, surely it can reach the terrorists who are hiding inside a bunker under a hospital, probably surrounded by hostages as human shields. Hamas rigged the battlefield. Hamas rigged the battlefield.
I like there are like 4 screeching Zionists in the audience that clap ecstatically regardless of what he says. Amazing.
To shield its military assets under civilians, and it left Israel with no option of getting to those leaders.
Okay, no
other
option,
than going
no other
through
option.
the civilians,
no option is what your opponent is saying.
So first of all, as we've discussed, and I'm here all night, Elon can take his time, they killed 15 members of the Doss family, 7 children.
We can continue this at the reception afterwards if you want.
And I'll happily ask you, why did the government that you served in kill 15 innocent people in an apartment building? Hold on, this is very important, because there's no evidence Hamas was there. He's not even tried to make that claim.
Mehdi, just in the interest of time, you've asked it. It's become a rhetorical question.
It's crucial to the argument.
He's saying there was no. When he says there was no other option, what is your response to that?
Well, no one in the world agrees with that. That's why Israel's become a pariah in the world, because even
what was the option, Mr. Hassan?
Even Joe Biden.
Not kill those people, because that's 15 innocent people. You fucking demented bastard.
Us do.
Even Joe Biden, the most
What
pro...
does October 7th
Even Joe Biden...
justify?
I already answered that question. Even Joe Biden, the most pro-Israel president of my lifetime, who has backed Israel with weapons and arms, has gone on the record saying too much indiscriminate bombing. You've killed too many innocent people. Even the people on your own side say you're killing too many people, Elon. But
Yeah, but that's rhetoric. He doesn't give a fuck. What has he done to actually try and stop anything? By all accounts, he's been goading them on to fucking invade Lebanon. He's a fucking Zionist lunatic. This crazy old cunt's gonna get the fucking world destroyed. Oh, but he told a funny story about Corn Pop that one time. Yeah, stick your ice cream up your arse, you old bastard.
Mr. Hassan,
accept that.
Mr. Hassan, too many people have been killed. The number of people who should have been killed is 0. Too many people were killed when Hamas's psychopath leaders, who are funded by your paymasters in Qatar, maybe you share a slack.
All right. Let's please bullet with that.
I'm going to respond to that.
No. It's another cheap shot, and I don't want to entertain cheap shots. I want to go to you, Elon.
Hang on, I don't want to entertain cheap shots, so I'm going to allow the person who did the cheap shot to have the next say as well? You're a clown, mate.
On with this question. When you say that the war is justified, killing in war can only be justified if it serves a greater good. What's the greater good that's being served at this moment?
Mr. Donovan, this war is not justified because Hamas should not have started this war in the first place.
Well, the question is whether
the question
you are
Israel's
arguing.
Response.
You are answering the question. Yes, Israel's actions are justified.
The response is an attempt to prevent the next October 7th massacre.
Well,
on October 7th, Hamas showed us what it was capable of doing, and they immediately went on TV and said October 7th, October 10th, October 1 millionth. Everything we do is justified. We're a nation of martyrs, they said. We're proud to sacrifice millions of martyrs if that's what it takes. And we are trying to stop October 7th and to do so in a way that minimizes the cost to their civilians.
Let me just deal with the last point and the previous point, which is the idea. Let's just be real here. And a lot of military experts say this, but you don't even need military experts. You just need common sense. The idea that you prevent another October the 7th or that you destroy Hamas by making tens of thousands of Palestinian children orphans is insane. It doesn't protect Israel. Forget Gaza. It doesn't protect Israel. And let me just deal with this classic. My paymasters in Qatar. Yes, I host a show for Al Jazeera English. Let's just be very clear. In December, the New York Times published a very, very long piece.
Come on. Nobody
very
cares.
important
Nobody
here. Very
cares.
important here. It's relevant to the debate. The New York Times.
All right, make it relevant. Please make it relevant.
New York Times published a very long piece which said a month before October the 7th, the head of the Mossad, David Barnier, went to Doha, Qatar, and the Qataris said, "Do you want us to keep sending money to Gaza?" And he went back to Netanyahu. He said, "What should I say?" And Netanyahu said, "Yes, please." And he went back. He said, "Yes, please send the money to Gaza." Elon went to work for the government of Benjamin Netanyahu a month afterwards. He's never apologized for that to the Israeli people. Benjamin Netanyahu's never apologized to that to the Israeli people. So if anyone should answer questions about Qatari funding of Hamas, allegedly, reportedly, whatever you want to call it, it's the Israeli government that facilitated it for many, many years. Elon was in that government. He's the spokesperson for that government.
It was a terrible mistake to allow Qatari money into Gaza on the mistaken belief that if we improve civilian life in Gaza, create jobs, create opportunity, Hamas's psychopath leaders won't launch this war. They went straight on TV and said, we tricked the Israelis. We made them think that we were concerned about the civilians in Gaza, all the while we were taking that money to build the tunnels and the weapons and the rockets we are firing at Israel. If we had known, Mr. Hassan, what Hamas was going to do on October 7th, perhaps we should have started a preemptive war to eliminate that threat.
We were actually really fucking... Look, you should be grateful to us that we didn't preemptively just start slaughtering people, actually. Even though we also did that, but, you know, whatevs.
Thought they could have burned the Simantov children alive on October 7th, but we didn't.
Okay.
Hamas tricked us,
Time out.
and we won't
Time out.
repeat the same mistake again.
Time out. Going to take a little bit of a 10-second breath and slightly lower the temperature, but only slightly. Elon, you were making the argument that Israel's actions are justified in the pursuit of the destruction of Hamas. We've come to the point, though, where even Israeli military officials are saying it can't be destroyed. Therefore, what happens to that argument that the justification is the destruction of Hamas if it's an organization of...
Well, now they've moved on to a different target. They've destroyed one people's, now it's on to the next.
Movement that can't be destroyed.
Of course Hamas can be removed from power, just like ISIS was removed from power. ISIS is now a terrorist organization that is trying to blow up concerts in Austria. It no longer controls territory the size of Austria. Following this war, we cannot allow the Hamas terrorist regime, it's not an organization, it's a terror regime and a terror army, to regroup, restock, rearm, and keep shooting rockets at our towns while it is still holding civilians. It is a regime that must be removed from power because we know exactly what it wants to do if given half a chance, and that is to do October 7th again and again. And Israel's war, Mr. Hassan, I'll yield the stage to you and ask you, eliminating the Hamas terror regime, removing it from power, a legitimate military objective, yes or no?
Of course it's a legitimate military objective for Israel. And that's what I quoted the ICC chief prosecutor saying, but you're doing a very bad job of it. What's interesting?
Do I understand that after October 7th?
What John
do
said,
I understand? No, because I want to clarify and understand we're on the same page.
You want to clarify the guy who can't answer why you killed 15 civilians?
No, I want to understand that we are on the same page. Do you agree that
I'll answer your
after
questions
October
when you
7th,
answer mine.
it was legitimate for Israel to remove the Hamas terror regime in order to prevent another October 7th? It's a yes or no question, Mr. Hassan.
No, it's not. It's a loaded question. I'm going to say it was legitimate for Israel to defend its citizens inside of Israel. It's not legitimate to occupy Palestinian territory for decades on end. And let me answer... Can I actually answer what you came to me for?
If I can rebut...
Let me answer John's question. Let me answer
Elon, you've had about 2 or 3 minutes in a row. Go ahead,
You asked a very interesting question of Elon. You pointed out that he keeps saying, notice the sleight of hand. You said that he said, and he said it many times, not just here, Hamas should be destroyed. When you asked him, Israeli military experts in general say it can't be destroyed. Notice what Elon said? He said, remove from power. Quickly move the goalpost there. Because he knows that Hamas can't be destroyed by these means. In fact, the former head of Israel's military,
said from
let me
the
finish
very
my point.
beginning.
The former head of Israel's military, who was a member of Netanyahu's war cabinet, he said earlier this year, quote, anyone who says you can destroy Hamas is telling tall tales. So it's not me calling Elon Levy a liar, it's the former head of the Israeli military.
Mr. Hassan, from the beginning,
This is brutal. This is a brutal bodying, you're saying here.
Israel has said that its goals are to remove Hamas from power and dismantle its ability to wage war again, and to live up its threat of repeat October 7th. And that is why I ask you, after October 7th, was it legitimate for Israel to remove Hamas from power in order to eliminate the threat of repeat October 7th? Yes or no?
Very simple answer. Israel has the right to defend its citizens in its territory. It doesn't have a right to be an occupier. It doesn't have a right to... Let me finish the point, because you think they're your neighbors. The International Court of Justice says Gaza and the West Bank are occupied. They've been occupied every day since 1967. You did not withdraw in 2005. You blockaded,
I'd like to explain. I'd like to explain what the purpose here is.
And I've already
answered
the question, Elon. I've made the point that even if I was an Israeli general trying to destroy Hamas, killing thousands of innocent people only helps Hamas. Every terrorism expert in the world says you're a recruiting sergeant for extremist groups when you go and kill innocent civilians.
Mr. Hassan, whether this war...
Time out.
Is it me that finds him calling him Mr. Hassan every single time slightly annoying, actually? Like it's just calling Mehdi. You don't need to be like it's almost sneering or something, you know. I don't know. Thank you, Corncob Maestro, for resubscribing for 10 months. Much love, and thank you, Idiosyncrasy, for the various small bits donations. Much love.
Time out, Elon, time out. I have a question for whoever wants to jump on it. Is Israel's war in Gaza making Israel more secure?
When this war began, Hamas had a fearsome missile arsenal that rained thousands of missiles on our cities.
Whereas now, there's none. It's fine, actually. You prick. No, to be fair, this took place before the recent shellings of various places in Israel. But still, I think it rather sums up the point nicely. Hello, Justin Freakin. How are you, mate? And hello there, first-time chatterino, oh my god, Mahoshi Soul Song. I keep thinking he's talking to Hassan Piker. Yeah, it is annoying. Although if he was calling him Hassan Piker, Mr. Hassan, it would just be even weirder because that's not even his surname.
To keep running into a rocket shelter. Israel has now eliminated the threat of rocket fire from Gaza.
Okay, so it can stop bombing it now then? Because it hasn't.
It has cut off its smuggling routes, it has destroyed its missile silos, and it has destroyed Hamas's weapons capabilities. That alone has made us safer and makes it easier to sleep in our beds at night.
Yeah, this is the Zionist goal. I can't speak to whether this is like a legit picture or whatever, but that's the goal that Zionists have. Okay, that's the Zionist goal, from the Euphrates to the Nile, right? That's the land they must occupy in order for Greater Zion, which is, by the way, what Christians think will then bring about the rapture and the inevitable outcome of the war between God and the devil, which will see all of the non-believers burn in hell, including all of the Jewish people. That's what's actually behind this. Ridiculous.
3 quick things. Number one, the Israelis went to Supreme Court recently and they were having an argument in Israel's Supreme Court, and they put in the official filing that we do not control Gaza. Even after all this time, Hamas is still in control of lots of parts of Gaza. So they say the honest stuff when you're not looking. It's true. Number two, I interviewed Ami Ayalon recently, former head of Shin Bet, former Israeli admiral. He said very explicitly, Israel will not be safe until we give Palestinians freedom. This is his words, not my words. And number three, I'm glad you had a bomb shelter to protect you, because the Al-Dos family in Gaza did not have a bomb shelter to protect them.
Okay. Another question we have not.
I like that he keeps skewering him with that, because he can't answer, because the obvious answer is, oh yeah, they were killed because they were brown. They're Muslims, so they were killed. They were ethnically killed. Oh, they were killed because of their ethnicity. They were, Palestinian. Which he can't say, of course, because he has to pretend that this is like a righteous thing that they're doing.
We have not yet talked about the hostages, and we should. Is Israel's action in Gaza going to is it for the benefit of the hostages?
Absolutely. Israel is fighting to bring the
What about the ones they've killed, mate? Any thought for that? No? Okay.
hostages home while Hamas is starving and torturing and raping them. We managed in November, because Hamas was being clobbered, and it wanted...
He keeps mentioning this torturing and raping when we know it's Israel that's torturing and raping innocent people. It's honestly disgusting.
A breather. They released nearly half of the hostages. We've sent in special forces to rescue hostages in raids my opponent has condemned. Israel is fighting to put the military pressure on Hamas to release the hostages, but Hamas doesn't want to release the hostages. And the reason it doesn't want to release the hostages is that it knows that the longer this war goes on and the more suffering it generates among its own people in Gaza, the more it advances its own goal of isolating Israel. And Mr. Hassan, it pains me that you do not seem to realize the role that you play within Hamas's strategy when you deflect blame onto Israel. Never demand any accountability. Never demand any accountability from the Hamas regime. When you know that Hamas's goal is to maximize suffering, you give it a reason to drag on this war. If you want it to let the hostages go, you should tell
of all the nonsense you've said tonight,
Hamas to free the hostages.
Of all the demonstrably untrue things you've said tonight, this is the big one. So apparently, if you want a deal to end the war, you're enabling Hamas's strategy.
No.
That's what you just said.
No,
I'm enabling Hamas's strategy.
But you have systematically undermined every leverage Israel has to free the hostages.
You know who's undermining?
Stop pretending
Can I answer the question?
about the hostages.
Of the two of us, hold on. Of the two of us, whose strategy has released more hostages, mine or yours? Because I supported a ceasefire. And we got, hold on.
Our strategy. Your strategy is to give cover for Hamas's war crime.
Let him finish, please.
Over 100 hostages were released last November. in the pause, in the ceasefire deal. A lot of Israelis wanted that to continue. Hostages' families wanted that to continue.
Yes.
Netanyahu, can I finish my answer? Netanyahu said no. In fact, I interviewed Zahiro Moore, whose uncle Avraham Munda was horribly killed in Gaza. Zahiro Moore, by the way, was arrested today. He's been arrested and attacked by the Israeli government that Elon served in multiple times. He said to me, Netanyahu and the government that Elon was part of, always choose the wrong way. Ever since October the 8th, everything they do is directed at not getting the hostages back. That is the plain truth. That is the nephew of a hostage. They don't want you to hear about the hostages. Elon and people like Elon use the hostages as political pawns. The hostages' families are standing on the streets of Tel Aviv opposing the Netanyahu government, calling for a ceasefire, calling for a deal. They don't like Elon leaving. They don't support Elon.
Mr. Hassan, how many hostage rallies have you spoken at? How many hostages' mothers have you embraced and hugged them and told them, I will here for you, whatever you need? I was at Central Park. I was at Central Park last Sunday at the rally for the hostages. You were not. Mr. Hassan, if you really care about the hostages,
let me ask you, we got
I have a spare hostage pin
here.
If you want to show them you care, you're welcome to put it on your platform.
All right, this is fantastic. Let's go.
Wow, gimmick. Lovely, lovely flag pin gimmick. Strong rhetoric.
So, put it on. Show them you care. Show them you care. I am in daily contact with the hostage families. I tell them I will do whatever it takes to help you get your kids home. Show them you care and stop trying to exploit the hostages' suffering.
Elon, allow him to respond. You've got your bit of stagecraft.
So
Please take it.
Let's be clear. You saw the very, very performative outrage there from Elon there. To be clear, don't you lecture me about hostages when your government has killed more hostages than it has rescued. That's on you.
Yes. Absolutely caramelized him. He is a fucking puddle of sweat on the floor. Love it.
That is on Hamas.
All right.
I need to finish this point.
I'm going to let you finish this point, and then we're moving on.
I will happily support this pin because I support the release of all the hostages and let me finish. And I support the release of thousands of Palestinian detainees being raped and tortured and children. Do you support that? Let's wear it together. Do you support the release? Do you support the release of Palestinians?
I do not support,
do you support
the release
of Palestinian children? Do you support the release of Palestinian children?
Mr. Hassan, anyone who
let's get some space here.
He can't answer the question.
Mr. Hassan,
See, he doesn't want to. He can't even bring himself to say, "I support the release of Palestinian children," because at least that would then, he would be confirming that they are holding Palestinian children, which would be kind of hostage taking and very much illegal.
Won't
I
get on the hostage.
I support the release of all innocent people.
Mehdi?
Doesn't. That's all you've got.
Once
Elon.
again.
Gimmicks.
Once again.
All you've got.
All right. I have one more question before we pivot to some questions from some journalists who are joining us, and I want to talk about America's involvement in this situation. The U.S. has been largely supporting Israel. If the war in Israel is unjustified, that implicates the U.S. in an unjust war. If the war is justified, then we have an ally that requires our help. Which is it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
We have, it's about U.S. involvement in the war. If the war is unjustified, that implicates the U.S. in an unjust war. If it's justified, we have an ally.
No! The United States might be implicated in an unjust war? Oh! Heaven forfend! I do declare, sir, never such an impertinent thought crossed my mind. Yeehaw, etc. Obviously.
Ally that requires our help.
When this war began, President Biden said that Israel is facing sheer, pure, unadulterated evil. It was so obvious in the moment of shock after October 7th that for Israel to defend itself, it has to dismantle the Hamas terror regime, that President Barack Obama said we must stand by our ally Israel as it...
Oh wow, a different Zionist who did everything that Israel wanted him to, but they hated because he was black. That guy. Okay.
dismantles Hamas. The United States has made valuable support to Israel in its goal of bringing down the Hamas regime. What we need is pressure on Hamas and its patrons, Qatar, Turkey, and Iran, to let the hostages go. That pressure has not been forthcoming.
I mean, before I came on stage, Gershon Baskin, who's Israel's most famous hostage negotiator, he WhatsApped me and said he's got a deal, 3-week deal on the table with Hamas that Hamas has agreed to release all the hostages and end the war. He says it's with Netanyahu. The ball's in Netanyahu's court. So when he keeps going on about hostages, tell him to speak to his former boss to agree to a hostage.
Gershon Baskin is the negotiator
As for the United
in whose
States,
deal to free
do
Gilad
stop interrupting,
Shalit,
Elon.
we
You've
released
had your performance.
Yehia Sinwar.
As for the United States, it is...
So hang on. So Israel's top negotiator is Hamas. Is that literally where you're at now? That's as far as you've gotten. Is that their top hostage negotiator is Hamas? Unbelievable. So sycophantic are they in their defense of Benjamin Netanyahu? Because they're not even being pro-Zionist. They're just being pro-Benjamin Netanyahu at this point. Unbelievable, man. It's fucking pathetic. God. He really is a massive stumbling block. Like, whoever replaces him at some point, because he's old, like, he'll be dead soon. At some point, he won't be Prime Minister of Israel. And whoever replaces him will also be a Zionist piece of shit, we know that. But they don't necessarily have to be wedded to the concept of constant fucking war, because they're not looking to cover their own arse in the way that he is. He really is, in terms of the immediate cessation of, like, offensive hostilities, he really is the stumbling block here. They're not even being Zionists, they're being Bibyists at this point. Which is even more pathetic. It's even sadder. Because you're just fucking... you're just cocking yourself out to a fucking pathetic, bloated, corrupt monster. The fuck is wrong with you? Kev, who will be next after Netanyahu? I have no idea. It depends on the makeup, I suppose, of the next Knesset, but... or Knesset, whatever. So I don't really know, in all honesty.
It's tragic to me as a citizen of the United Kingdom and the United States that my two countries have armed Israel as it carries out what the ICJ has called a plausible genocide. No.
Is he a citizen? He's a citizen of the United States, you fucking turncoat piece of shit. Unless, maybe this is what we do. We get the colony back by slowly infiltrating one journalist at a time. Fiendish. Devilishly good plan, Mehdi. I'm on board with you, chap. Wink, wink.
No,
as it arms the Prime Minister
Mr.
who is wanted for war crimes.
Mr. Hassan!
Jesus Christ, if his voice gets any more high-pitched, he's going to fucking take off. What is going on here?
The ICC chief prosecutor has called for the arrest of Yoav Gallant and Benjamin Netanyahu. The American government should not be arming a man wanted for war crimes. And Elon Levy should have began his speech tonight apologizing for working for a man who is wanted for war crimes by the ICC chief prosecutor.
You'd hope so, but he didn't.
Mr. Donver, you called me to account at the beginning of the debate and said I should not have called my opponent a liar. The former president of the ICJ, Joan Donoghue, had to go on
many
TV,
other judges disagreed with her.
had to go on TV
The
to
American
explain
judge who
Let
worked
him
for
speak.
her ruling did not define there was a plausible genocide.
Actually, the
she
other
had to
judges
go on
disagreed with
TV
her.
to
Collective
refute the lie. The only reason for you to make that
the ICC
lie,
chief prosecutor
the
called for
only
arrest warrant, Elon.
whose arrest warrant claims were
Did the
based on
ICC
lies.
All right, this is not...
So he's going to take the one judge who is an American at face value, and all the other judges who said otherwise are bad because they're all Hamas or something. The hoops that Hasbro people have to jump through to try and keep their story straight is just spectacular.
Not helping. We are not able to hear what anybody is saying. We're not able to hear what anybody's saying. You are both talking at the same time, and I'm talking at the third time.
Shut up, scuffed Dylan.
So let's stop this.
Convenient.
I have a question for each of you before we pivot, which I want to ask you if you can answer without attacking one another. And I'm also curious to see if you can do it in under 20 seconds, because we're just curious. Each of you came to this debate, and by your decision to participate, we saw on social media that both of you were attacked by members of your own camp for being even on the stage with somebody who's holding the opposing view. But you showed up anyway. Ilan, why did you show up? 15 seconds.
Because Iran, the Palestinian nationalists and their allies are waging a war of misinformation that has one purpose. They want to destroy Israel. And they
Jesus Christ, the projection is remarkable.
think it will be much easier to destroy Israel if they convince the world that Israel deserves to be destroyed. A full campaign of the most ridiculous lies to try to convince good, ordinary Americans that when they're ready to pull the trigger and massacre us once more, they should stand to one side and say, well, the Jews had it coming. And I'm not willing to allow that to happen.
Again, very subtly, they're changing Israel into the Jews, because that's what they do. That's what Zionists do. They have to try and equate all Jewish people with Israel, which is actually pretty fucking anti-Semitic, but whatever.
You recall the question?
Statement.
Sorry?
Okay, just a 20-second answer.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I believe that what is happening in Gaza, the killing of 16,000 children, the genocide in Gaza is the great moral tragedy of our time, the great crime of our time, and I will go almost anywhere and take a stage with almost anyone to try and bring that war to an end and convince people that the war needs to end now.
May I add something?
No, you may not. You're a piece of shit. I hope nothing but the worst for you. You absolute ghoul. Anyway, I'm not going to bother sticking around for the media questions bit, because who gives a fuck?
Get some help.
Maybe I should. Maybe I should stop and get some help. Thank you, Cupcake Chaos. For 44 months. Wow, 27 Liz Truss tenures. Exactly. But how many lettuces? I don't know. Actually, that was one of the things. No, you need to watch the questions. No, I don't. I don't need to watch the questions, Kira. I don't. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Or something. I'm fucking tired. Leave me alone. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow or the weekend or something. I don't know. I'm tired and I wanna go to bed. I had a little drink about an hour ago. I didn't actually have a drink an hour ago at all. I'm just alive. Rawr. I did a little growl. Anyway, thank you, Kieran. Much love. I'll send you over to somewhere. Let's have a look who's going on the YouTubes. Is anyone good going? Fucking hell. It's basically the Young Turks. So on YouTube, just go wherever the fuck you want to go. I don't care. I'm not sending you anywhere. On Twitch, there's got to be someone other than fucking the Young Turks going. Jesus Christ. Why do I even fucking still subscribe to those scum? I don't even know. Measuring yourself. What is this? I don't even know half of the people I fucking follow. I never watch any of their shit. Because I follow so many people that, like, how could I? I'll send you over to Fran for you. She's good people. And I'll be back tomorrow. Possibly with No Justice MTG. Possibly not. I don't know. Fran Frio? There you go. Yes, go and say hello to Fran. And I'll be back. Yeah, like I say, I'll be back tomorrow, possibly to do question time, which will probably be a Tory question time or something. I don't know, but maybe not. I have no fucking idea. Stay beautiful. No pass around.